All right, folks, we are back in action. I'm bringing you XL the Stream Part 3 as we continue with the utility mods. We're going to pick up where we left off, maybe backtrack a little. But in fact, before we do this, I was going to pull up something else. I did make a quick propulsion chart yesterday, mainly to update VSS legs. I made I've already done a lot of propulsion work, like I mentioned before. We've redone it several times, including during beta 11, and I think that they're pretty balanced now. But these were newly added recently, the VSS legs, specifically for specialists, because I needed a new kind of leg that was faster. I wanted them. The specialists are supposed to be legged bots, but we've got some specialists now that need to move faster because we have a lot more variants and some of them are short range variants. So I said, okay, well, we'll add a new kind of faster leg for them specifically. And then I also gave it to a couple other specialists that didn't necessarily have to have it, but it became kind of a specialist type leg. But their thing is that they're faster, got their 90 time per move, but at the same time they cost more energy and have less support. But I went a little overboard on the energy costs. The main point there was in general, I didn't want people mixing too many of these in with regular legs because it could make leg builds too fast. But at the same time, it was a little high. So lowering that, I see now we got 4, 5, and 5. This is a little higher than their average legs at that depth. This one even matches titanium, but it's a support thing too. The amount of support, they definitely have less support. So if you mix these in, you're going to have a slightly lighter potential on your build, but it could enable some interesting hybrid builds. And I think people will start using these a lot more now. The people have pretty much been ignoring them, including me. And I like leg builds, so that's kind of unexpected, I guess, and something that obviously needed to change. But I had overtuned it. A lot of the things that I introduced won't be 100% balanced. They're kind of overtuned. Shoot, that's too big. Sorry, I forgot to do something before I started the stream. I'm looking at something else here. So let me see here. I heard hello, Destin. I'm here to heckle me. Tone hack. Welcome to the stream. And Wimiko, of course, specialist good, says Wimiko. I remember the first and last time I equipped VSS legs. It was like negative 12 energy per move. Yeah, for sure. Um, Definitely, they were really hard to use. It wouldn't really make much sense to use them because the amount of energy you needed to actually run on these legs required all the power they could support to begin with. So now it's more doable. The math will work out a little better. I made some pretty little nice graphs, which helped me adjust the support per energy levels, which were even lower than this. Now they're a lot more reasonable. But at the same time, they are going to be not as effective as regular legs. But they could work with, make your ninja builds a little better. Grab something from a bag of chips. Bag of chips and Cogmind confirmed. No, this is actually a. Maybe I don't need this. I was thinking of applying a patch on my leg here. These are large though. I'd have to cut them, and I don't have scissors next to me. This one, yep, they didn't have any of the smaller ones. Let me see. One second. But yeah. So the other thing. So there you go. There's our new props, and mainly just updated VSS. I don't really plan on making any other changes to that stuff, unless somebody else really wants to bring things up. Today's supposed to be a utility stream, so we're going to be going back to utilities in a second. Just as soon as I shoot, we're gonna bag of auth chips. There you go, Tone. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna step a few steps away here and grab some scissors. Just a moment. Vector says, I think VSS should at least be given a chance at being overtuned towards usable just to collect the data from the. Right. Usually that's the thing. That's how I overtune things. But the intent here was I was trying to overtune it kind of away from player use, but it's a little too far away, clearly. But I tend to tune things, towards to encourage players to use stuff and then nerf it after that a little bit during pre-releases anyway. But we'll see. This one should be better. Easy solution: make VSS legs overloadable. Yeah. Um, it's true that could be a thing. I mean, that's kind of like that's the niche of potential legs, which I added that entire mechanic specifically for that one leg. But I would have to, redo, I guess, potential legs if that would become a more standard thing. But yes, potential legs are quite good. So yeah, so that's VSS. We're done with this page. I'm gonna close that. And so we stopped the core analyzer last time. I'll increase the font size in a bit, but part of the I have more trouble reading those such large fonts, which also caused me to last time completely glaze over the fact that this here is not. I was talking about trap extractors when we reach this point, and it's actually trap scanners. So we kind of need to revisit this um, because we talked about the wrong item. I was going really quickly through this section anyway because I didn't really plan on making any changes. But again, that's also because I thought it was the trap extractor, which was on my list to potentially to give that update to that we talked about, but didn't end up doing it. Not yet anyway. It's still on the list. But so going back to the trap scanner here. Yeah, so we skipped that. So what do people think about trap scanners? I mean, if you really want to avoid traps, they're a pretty good option. The chances seem low, but remember they stack with your basic your basic ability to scan line traps, and it's every single turn, which is pretty frequent. And there's also the fact that it compounds with the fact that traps are usually found in groups, and this is your chance to spot each trap in a group, which means you're really likely to find traps, even with lower percents on this. So, what do people think about that? Um, Wait before you go off prop. You could forget to revisit Megatreads. Yeah, okay, we'll go back and look at that in a second. But no, I don't think we're gonna make change. I mean, I already thought about it yesterday, and I don't think anything's gonna change there. They were kind of meant to be meme items to begin with, and obviously it's nice to have something that's also meme and more usable. So maybe we could buff it. What's the base trap percent chance? That would help me assess its utility. Yeah, the base is like 1 or 2%. I think it's 2% maybe. But either way, even the worst trap scanner allows you to find traps a fairly bit quicker. Oh, hey, Reese. This is the CSV that configures the game. No, this is actually the game doesn't actually use CSV. It uses a different tab delimited file. This is the output. So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, this is the one of the outputs the game can give you from your gallery. So in debugging mode, I can give myself the full gallery of items and then export it to it exports to text, HTML, and CSV. And this is the CSV export, which I then format in Excel, and I'm using it currently to show everyone. But it's not the actual game data, which is a different format and has even more information in it. Um, but I can't format it like I can in Excel, and it would also reveal certain things about the game that's not public. So, but yeah. Anyway, right. Yeah, Vectors is pointing out, right. Yeah, this effect can be attained by using slower propulsion, giving you more chances to spot traps naturally. And that's true. On slow propulsion, you don't really need a trap scanner much because if you're slow enough, you're probably going to spot the traps before you hit them anyway, or at least have an idea that there's traps nearby. Probably. It's not guaranteed, which is why you still will hit them on slower prop. But the scanner is mainly meant for faster prop. So we're kind of asking players who have faster prop and are worried about traps, whether you'd use this. And like an advanced trap scanner that's a really high percent chance. You are unlikely to run into traps if you use one of these things. Um, oh, you think I wouldn't call that a QOL change, Vectus. Vectus saying a QOL change would be adding a chance of the ability to or add trap scanner ability to detect entire arrays instead of individual traps. But that's not QOL. That's changing the mechanic, which makes it even more effective and fast. Which honestly, once you've found one and you have an idea that there are more nearby, you can spend more turns if you'd like to. But you don't. think it would. Yeah, I don't think so either. It wouldn't influence players' pick rates probably in terms of whether or not you want to use this. So anyway, I'm curious if people and how many are using this. This isn't something we can really tell from the data whether people are using this. In fact, maybe that should be. No, probably not. It's kind of hard to do that in a meaningful way. I was going to say maybe in this, a score sheet includes a ton of data. We should include some kind of trap detection or discovery data. But honestly, that wouldn't be it wouldn't really provide us with any actionable or usable data, and wouldn't even be super interesting, probably. What? Why bother Vectis? Vectis saying remove the improved trap scanner. Actually, that reminds me. What's the frequency on these things? One of the things that you always look at is frequency too. Whoops, it's in a different. It's appearing at it. Okay, narrow. Yeah. It's not really need to. Don't need to remove it per se, because the way these are distributed in the game, especially the at least not the makeshift one, they're distributed over. Oh, even yeah. These are distributed over a narrow depth, which means in terms of items, narrow distribution means a rating 3 trap scanner is likely to appear on level 3 of the game, which is materials 8, and the chance gradually degrades over time. There's different kinds. So there's different kinds of distribution rates for items, and there's the one where it doesn't degrade over time. So as soon as the rating 3 as soon as you reach level 3 in the game, which again is materials 8, starting from materials 10, you're at level 1, and it goes positive from there. Anyway, as soon as you reach level 3, the game can choose to drop a trap scanner. Oh, I'm in trouble talking. I'm still a little cold from my morning ride, but anyway. So anyway, it can choose to drop one, and if the rate doesn't decline over time, if it's set to do that, then literally, and it can pick. This will be in the item pool at an equal chance throughout the rest of the game of your run, all the way up to the surface. But if the rate declines or over time, what happens is it will there's different rates of decline. There's fast and slow, and this trap scanners actually have a fast rate of decline, which means you're not really likely to find a trap scanner. You probably can't even find one at level 6, and there's a lower chance you'll find one on rating 4 on level or rating 4, and level 5 the chance is even smaller. I think it's impossible on 6. And so what happens is once the trap scanner is only available at this ability at the very earliest ratings, and then later this takes over. Now, so with some of the other items, like I don't have examples here. There's some examples looking at my other page, like terrain scanners. The first terrain scanner here, or is it the regular terrain scanner? I'll up the font size for you guys. The regular terrain scanner here, it drops out quickly. These do not, so you can find them more like this can be found on rating even up to level 6 randomly on the floor. But again, the chance is lower. It's not. This is not equivalent throughout the run. But yeah, there's a different way. Just checking chat here to see if anyone was mentioning anything else. This is why it's so important to pull schematics on -10 weird loot distribution patterns. No, that's not true, actually. Storage schematics are important on -10 purely because the pool grows in the late game. There's more items available. But I don't know about it. Storage itself can appear anywhere out throughout the entire run. They're all rating 1, and they can appear at any depth. And that's true too. Exactly, Vectis. Things like terrain scanners that appear on other bots. Actually, do they have regular terrain scanners? I don't know what you mean. Improved terrain scanners are what tunnelers use. They don't actually use terrain scanners. So this is a completely different thing. But these are actually useful still in beta 11 with the range changes. Even an entry level terrain scanner is pretty useful. But yeah, that also affects distribution, is whether or not another bot has it. They're more likely to have that. Yeah, you didn't know that, Vectis? Hello, Bad Emperor. You ready to provide some unconstructive criticism? Gotcha. I will take it as such. So, um, so anyway, back to trap scanners. I haven't. It doesn't. I'm not hearing any useful input there. I personally think they're fine for what they are. But anyway, that was an opportunity to explain to you the distribution here. How technically, like these don't start doubling up uh, as much as you might see with some of the other items, like the terrain scanners. Mid-tier terrain scanners will start to double up in terms of either of them can appear. But this one, they just take over. They kind of replace the ones before them. Obviously, this is an exception because it's a derelict. A derelict item which can only appear in derelict areas. Um, but that's true. Quite true. Trap scanners work well against arrays, but with single place traps, they're unreliable. Most traps appear in arrays, though, so that's the data point too. So you're likely with this, you're really likely to find at least one of the traps in an array, and you're not going to probably hit the whole array unless you're in a hurry. But at least it'll let you know that there are traps and what kind in the area. In which case um, you can take the appropriate action. It might affect your route through a local area. Arguing there isn't a big enough difference between tiers is how we got armor integrity analyzer nerfed to death. No, that's actually not how armor integrity analyzer was nerfed. Armor integrity analyzer was nerfed because at the highest level it was so good it became an item that you had to have at the end game. Um, it gave you much greater chances of success, so it was nerfed for that reason. And then one of the tiers was removed because you kind of want some difference between the tiers in a lot of cases. So yeah, that got so one of the tiers was removed most recently for that in beta 11. What if trap scanner worked like a sensor array instead of requiring vision? uh that's interesting. You also have decoder chips for that. Decoder chips can tell you where traps are outside vision. But it's probably too good then. That would be my guess. I mean, the chances would have to be lowered if that was the case. I would lower the chances if these became like sensors and could detect out of range. But also, I don't think it makes much sense. It makes sense on the OB10 decoders because of where you're getting the info. But the trap scanner, I mean, it doesn't seem to make logical sense for that reason. And again, I would just lower these percents if that was the case. And I don't think I'd really want to lower the percents per se. I like the idea of them using requiring vision. But yeah, it would allow you to be even more likely to catch door traps. Technically, as long as you're in view, these can catch door traps still. If you're on the outside in a corridor, they're just as likely, or they're going to be fairly likely to catch door traps. Again, it depends on how fast you're moving. But yeah, if it's just inside or outside a door that you're only passing through and you happen to hit it, the thing is, the chances of that are not incredibly high. I mean, there's a door trap, there's only 1 in 6 chances that you're going to actually hit it, even if you don't know it's there. And unless you keep passing back and forth. Well, not 1 in 6 because you got to go through the other side. So it's going to be 50. You get a 1 in 3 chance on either side of the door, um, assuming you actually go through the entire doorway. But yeah, Emika thinks I mean 100% chance. It's 100% chance when they explode in your face. That is true. Um, Decoders are better. Agree. Yeah, go over decoders. Um, yeah, that's an interesting idea too. A trap gives a message trap detected and spend times pinpointing its location. That's kind of interesting. I know. Yeah, and like Vector says, cool animation potential. I completely agree there. That could be cool animation potential, but I'm not going to do that. I think it's unless we get more. The thing is, there's not a lot of. I don't know. I'd like to wait on that if anything's going to change. But I think it's probably fine. These are actually new in beta 11 too. Very few people have had a chance to use these because we've had people are still using structural scanners instead, which were also capable of detecting traps in beta 10. So that'll be a new thing. But anyway, that's the scanner, not the actual extractor, which I thought I was talking about last time. So what I wanted to do, we're supposed to be getting back to here. Um, Core Analyzer. Story Analyzer. We're not gonna. So this is the item, one of the item that threatened, along with Metafield, to take over a lot of the stream last time. We're not talking about Metafield today. We're done with Metafield. Core Analyzer could be the main item for today, but we already talked about it for a long time. I took a lot of notes on it, and people came up with a bunch of different suggestions, and I actually didn't have time to review them. So I do not have a anything to add on this yet, other than um, I'm not sure what changes are necessary, and whatever changes are necessary are probably going to be contingent on whether or not we want to remove immunity from bosses. But that also depends on the effect we want. I think, for example, one of the main loss. So I did spend about 10 minutes. That's all I had before the stream to look at core analyzers and the notes specifically. And one of the things that I was able to reflect on is that the main important thing that we'd lose from this is that the ability to transfer disruption effects to a core, which I think some people like to use. Um, that's especially with a new half stack and the fact that you can transfer disruption. That's pretty cool with high disruption weapons. Um, Core analyzer buff 3 hours incoming, right? I know some people do this. Um, is some person Vectus? Vectus, do you do this? I don't know who. I don't remember who. It's you, Vectus? The number's way too low to make a difference compared to targeting computer. Is that so? I mean, it depends on how many are using or stacking. Cranlers are straight up terrible. Let's not do this discussion again. Okay. Well, anyway, so no one would care if we lost that effect then. Anyway, that's good for my notes then. Anyway, it's because I still haven't gone over this, and I don't think we're going to come to a solution here. Oh, all right. So I did take some notes at the end. One of the notes here was that actually one of the things is that with this changes here will affect or that are other bots, because there's a number of other bots that use core analyzers, and it's obviously has some more meaning against in combat against Cogmind in certain areas. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea is I'm always up for removing immunities. I love removing immunities. I mean, well, that should be explained as I don't like adding immunities in the first place. I think immunities suck. Having anything be immune to something is just an outright block on potential strategy, right? So I hate it when I have to add those. They're only added for necessary anti-cheese and balance reasons, and it was necessary in this case, I thought. Um, but I don't know. I guess it was also, well, Oemiko was showing charts last time about, like, for example, fighting a behemoth without if they aren't immune to the core analyzer, and it just kind of brought it. What I think my takeaway from that was it just kind of brought it on par with uh, other kinds of offensive utilities, and we're talking about better one here, actually, which is another thing altogether. The lower tier is not going to be super useful at all. So at least there, maybe it didn't seem quite so bad, but it's kind of complicated. It's hard to predict. Anyway, I don't plan on finishing Core Analyzer because I guess I need to go back and look at it more myself. I just wanted to catch up with what I had taken some more notes on, and I like the idea of removing the immunity to this effect if the effect can be made such that it's not overpowered, or if it's not overpowered already. My analysis is that it's slightly worse than Armor Integrity Analyzer on a bot with armor, but still has some benefits for bots without armor. Right, exactly, Vectus. That's. I agree. That's why I don't like immunities. It's because it requires you to know these extra things. That it's got extra details. It's kind of fiddly to work with. Experimental disruption analyzer. Anyway, so I'm gonna just skip this. We're not gonna have an answer on that one today. This one here. Here's the new armor integrity analyzer. We removed one of the tiers, and it starts at 30 instead of 20. And the max, the best is 50, and it doesn't stack. It used to be even better than this, which made it kind of crazy good. I think the top tier used to be 90%. It was meant to basically ignore armor almost pretty much entirely, which made it way too good. So it was nerfed because of that. It was kind of a required item for the extended game. So yeah, I think it's probably in a fine place right now. Um, what if base rating was decreased to 4? Oh, 4 you mean for the regular armor integrity analyzer? Um, yeah, and that's not important. I don't think. I mean, that's doable. Is, uh, is there a specific? Oh, wait a minute. Is the specific reasoning for this is that you can get it as soon as you get into factory potentially, and or hack it beforehand, and also and then take that to the first waste you can reach specifically. Yeah, okay. Omika says that 4 would let it appear in -7 for crushers. Yeah. Um. Yeah, sure. Um. Yes, it's fine to remove an armor integrity analyzer tier vectors because there's 4 of them, but there was only 3 trap scanner tiers. So yes, 4 tiers is sometimes too much. 3 tiers is oftentimes kind of a minimum for a lot of things, unless it's just something that's either really good or hard to balance, or sometimes we go down to 2 tiers for some things. I mean, you could technically go down to 2 tiers on Trap Scanner as well. Why though? I don't see a strong argument for doing that. Yeah, particle charger, right? Yeah, this one is actually kind of a crazy one. Actually, this one has a ton of tiers, and 3 of them are prototypes. This one's kind of an interesting, a lot of options there, which I was noticing well from the beginning. But anyway, all right, I'll drop this to 4. I'm cool with that. All right. So yeah, we're done with these. I think the top tier it's good, but not OP anymore, and the lower tier is still worth using. And now it's down to rating 7, 4. I mean, the next one's 7. So yeah, that's good enough. Recoil, stabilizer, and nullifier here. Stabilizers should either not exist or be buffed. Yeah, this one is too weak. The lower tier one here, but people do like nullifier. Weapon at each volley by 6. Right. So the main thing I think you do with this is, well, not necessarily. It's interesting comparing these to targeting computers, right? Because targeting computers do have a similar effect, but this is reduces the recoil from each weapon. So yeah, you can look at how recoil stabilizer at rating 3 only reduces each weapon by 2. So if you compare that to like a wait, where are they actually? On the list up here, that's regular. I hear it is targeting computers. Um, Targeting computers as low as rating 3, you can get up to 8%. Rating 3, 8%. So this is like equivalent to an advanced targeting computer. If you have a volley of 4 weapons that have a recoil of 2, um, well, even a higher recoil, at least 2. But anyway, hey MTF, what are we nerfing today? We're nerfing anything but botnet. Sorry. All right, so Tone says recoil nullifiers are fantastic. All right, so let's do. Well, you ask the important question: what is your favorite item we haven't rebalanced yet? So, what do people think about the stabilizer? We're still talking about the stabilizer here. Um, all right, so what if we upped it to 4? What if we doubled the effect of the stabilizer? I think that puts it within usable range, especially for as low as rating 3. If you're doing that, it'd be better than targeting computer. 4 would be good. Yeah. That's a good point, Vectus. Sure, okay. Yeah, Vectus would consider using it, but probably wouldn't use it, but at least consider it. Right. 4 removes recoil on all guns except for multi-rails. Most. Yeah, okay. I can see this. Anyway, I'll change that to 4. As long as some people might use it at 4, I think it's fine. 2 was definitely too low for that. There's a few oddballs. Bore gun recoil is Kai. Yeah, bore gun recoil. Recoil from stuff like that doesn't really count. It's kind of an exception for derelict weapons. So, all right. All right, we'll skip along then. We have these two filters. The matter filters and energy filters are now half stack, which means they're potentially extremely good if you're willing to put on 2 of the best ones. As we know, we discussed this before the change to half stack and decided to throw it on there and see what happens. It does mean that you can reduce your costs quite a lot, but I haven't seen people doing it yet. 1 second here. What? MTF says matter filter should have lower coverage. It's so high. Yeah, that's very intentional. That's because these are extremely good parts. The ability to lower the effect by that much. If we're going to reduce the coverage, I'd reduce the effect, which I think I'm now MTF and maybe some other people can say, okay, do that, right? But yeah, I would think if they're going to have a lower coverage, they're going to have a lower effect too, because this coverage is very specifically based on the fact that they have an extremely good effect. Sounds like you're going to reduce the effect anyway. What do you mean reduce the effect? We added half stack. That's like the opposite of reducing the effect. That's allowing you to get by for firing things for almost free. Especially, where these really start to shine is when you're using some of the super weapons and it's saving you literally like dozens or like even like hundreds of energy or dozens of matter per turn or whatever. But right now that the plan was to nerf it, and why is the plan to nerf it? We're not nerfing anything. You want me to nerf it? Wait, MTF seems like he's hoping we're not going to nerf the matter filter, so maybe we should nerf the matter filter. I want to get the double matter filter with Z meme delivery. I see. Omika says I'm excited to use it someday, but haven't had the scenario pop up. Yeah, you have to kind of luck into having multiple um, filters, or you fabricate them. And the thing is, the precision matter filters, as you can see, the precision filters are both prototypes. And as prototypes, that means they're not going to have, they're going to drop a lot less than your regular item. So to find a stash of these is pretty rare. Regular filters are not that rare. They're pretty common to find and even find in stashes. So you can stack those. The thing is, stacking these basically just gets you up to regular precision efficiency, right? Keep the matter filters the same, but require them to be changed every 6 months or 3,000 miles. I love it. Change your matter filter fluid. Are there any half stack parts with over 66? No. All the half stack stuff is lower percents. There aren't really any half stacks and there aren't a whole lot of item effects at all which are over 50. There was the armor integrity analyzer. That was the really big one before, which got removed. But one thing to consider right now is matter filters are very important to XLA and ALA builds, and it feels terrible when they get shot off immediately. Yeah, I can see that. Well, tough. That's the thing. These are very good, but they're not going to last forever. They will get blown off, and that's intentional. It's a really good effect. And if you really want to protect them, then you've got to use utility shielding, or only use them when it really matters. Keep them in your inventory, or have spares. Yeah, when the matter filter gets shut off, you steps up to compensate. Yeah. The bottomless pit. Because this, did you try not getting hit so much? Yeah, about that blast crit, right? No. A single hit from a heavy is capable of destroying it outright. Don't fight heavies. Yeah. Yeah, heavies are incredibly dangerous, and yes, they can just outright destroy it. For the record, energy filter is better than matter filter. That's uh, probably, yeah, probably. I would agree there. They're both good though. They're both good, but I think personally, I like energy filters more. Um, but yeah, they're both good, really. Anyway, I think they're pretty balanced. The Tone Hack 2 here is now concluding. Yeah, I think both filters are pretty balanced. I use them a lot, and they have a great effect, but also get destroyed easily. Yeah, that's really where we want them. Like I said, with their coverage, they're really good, but you're gonna lose them eventually. Um, yeah. So we're gonna. I'm not changing them, but it's nice to have that little discussion there. I didn't. I wasn't intending to change these at all, either. These are kind of crazy because there's so many tiers. Let me look at the distribution stats on these things. But you do find them. Whoops. Okay. You do find them. Keep not getting used to that being on the other sheet. You do find them in more because of it. Let me see here. Tricking the stats. Okay, rare. Oh, there. Yeah, they have a. So I do kind of. I would like the number of tiers here, mainly because of the way they're distributed. That's something that's not reflected on this chart here, but I can mention it. Like the two particle accelerator prototypes are both rare, which means you're actually not likely to find these. Um, which I'm sure uh, kind of people have recognized in game, and it kind of plays out in reality. They're rare prototypes, and these two alone have really high percents. These are incredibly powerful when you get them and combine them with some good stuff. And the fact they're half stacked, that would be pretty amazing if you could start half stacking with like two of these advanced ones. It's pretty awesome. But now regular particle accelerator only exists on ZXs. No, the regular particle accelerator, though, in particular, this one is just an uncommon prototype. Uncommon prototypes are actually don't drop very much either, because again, it's a prototype, which means it drops a lot less than a regular part, and it's an uncommon prototype, which means it drops even less. So yeah, particle accelerators in general are all pretty rare. So you're going to end up with these lower percent, a regular lower one, and I think these are pretty balanced overall. I mean, I use them. Of course that's without true empirical evidence, and of course you can like plug these things into Cogminders and see Cogminder stats and see what the outcome of simulations are. But my impression is they're generally worth using, even the lower tier ones. It often depends, of course, on what energy weapons you have. It's a percentage, so it depends on how large your volley is and what weapons it's composed of. But any of these can be useful, really, I think. And the two first ones, in terms of distribution, are common. These are common items. You can find them all over the place. And the advanced particle charger is not as common, but it's also not a prototype. So you still find these. I run into these a lot in my runs. So yes, we do have 6 tiers of Vectis, but you're only likely to see the first 3. Advanced particle charger are good enough most of the time. Nice to get them from grunts. Enhanced grunts. Yeah. The advanced particle chargers is really good, but even the other ones, I think they're usable. Oh, and here's MTF again saying also they get shot off too fast. Again, 50 coverage for a device means I don't think it should last. Look at all these 50 coverage devices. Look at this exception down here. We'll get there. But yeah, they're powerful. These allow you to increase the percent damage your entire energy volley is doing. They're for a single utility, it's quite good. Vectors that don't use accelerators because it's too hard to coordinate in a build. I mean, if maybe you don't run as many thermal builds though. Or even because doing an MTF impression. Particle charges should be a 1 covered 0 upkeep processor that also can't get blasted off. No, I'm sorry, Variant Police. You're gonna have to wait outside. Do you have a warrant? 6 tiers. Uh, We don't have a warrant. We have a gun. You have a gun, but do you have a particle charger? um. uh, so yeah, I mean, technically, the tiers can be reduced. That's another. It's another approach is to just reduce tiers and increase frequency a little bit. That's really similar. These are just allowing us to have some slightly different levels, which we could say aren't entirely necessary, but mm, yeah, I don't see a strong reason to do otherwise. Actually, especially based on the percents. Because I like to use more roundish numbers and rather than odd numbers in the middle of nowhere. So it helps when you and so it helps when you can have a certain types of steps between the items. Uh, yeah, we're not down to cyclers yet, Emperor. I mentioned that a second ago. I was saying most of these are harder to get shut off, but these are different. I have no complaints about these. Lots of damage utils are fairly interchangeable. Nothing special that makes it necessary or a build. Right. One exception, which this is where pretty much all these are. As you can tell, we're going through the weapon buff category here with like all the particle chargers, kin accelerators, launcher loaders, quantum capacitor, and then we're going to get down to the cyclers here, nano actuators, all this stuff. These time based ones are down here, but so yeah, I mean the damage ones in particular. I mean they kind of depend on your build, right? This is the damage. This is going to help your thermal build. These are going to help your kinetics build. This is going to help your single. This is your single launch or your launcher build. Here's your energy weapon, single energy weapon build. This is helps all types of volleys. Except for low weapon. This helps better, more helps a little more with Um, theoretically, yeah, this will even be more beneficial for larger volleys, technically. But yeah, these are interesting because they are an exception. I think the coverage on these was changed at one point a long time ago. Let me look that up actually. When did this change? I think it might have changed. I have the impression that it changed. Change log. Nope. Hmm. Don't have it on my change log record, so might not have changed. Oops. Second here. I could check more thoroughly through other methods, but that would require going through a different method. It would take a while. Um, oh, right. Yeah, that's a good point. Omika brings up is that weapon cyclers are a little different because these have resource costs, which to balance your build with. See, with all these others up here, these uh, these are just outright buffs. These are all outright buffs. This one here, weapon cyclers can actually be a detriment, which is kind of interesting because sometimes when you're in combat, you have to turn off your weapon cycler because you're draining too many resources unless you can manage to support all the resources you need for the length of an entire battle, which obviously is going to depend on a lot of different conditions. But weapon cyclers are really interesting in that way. I think that's a reason for leaving their coverage lower, despite the fact that they are also beneficial um, utilities that are in a similar vein as the others because they do have an associated cost. Um, oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot. That's true. There's upkeep up here. That's true. There's upkeep on the accelerators, and this is kind of a ridiculous upkeep, but that's also because they're amazing. Actually, trying to half stack these would be pretty crazy, huh? You couldn't do that for very long. Anyway, that's true too. Um, yeah, the big ones, the particle accelerators in particular, are really crazy. I don't know. I find that I have to turn off my cyclers after long combats. Right, they scale your volley upkeep rather than giving it a static cost. That's a big difference. I can see the side that Umika's arguing on here, but yeah, these are a static cost that's predictable. Weapon cyclers will scale it up. That's true. What about learn coverage increasing charity for more upkeep? I'd want to keep the cyclers as small as processors. Half stacking advanced particles is still not worth it. Uh, Probably not. The main thing I was thinking about in terms of half stacking this thing here, if you can manage to even get two of these things, is with like a super weapon, where that literally half stacking that like a super weapon combine this with a quantum capacitor and thermal thing that's just going to give you a whole extra ton of damage. I don't know. It depends on the build, but yeah, the half stack was added literally to all the things that we felt that it could be added to, just in the interest of using it more often than originally. These were originally no stack at all, right? So anywhere we can add a little more flexibility, might as well. But you'd never have enough energy. Yeah, it's a ridiculous energy cost, exactly. So, um, lowering coverage, increasing more repeat. So you're talking about making the cyclers as small as possible, make them even smaller. I think what we're talking about here is the fact that the coverage on cyclers is surprisingly low compared to these other parts. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, Oimika. With a double stacked advanced particle accelerator, you might be able to one hit KO Architect. Actually, do you even need it to do that? Oh, is it pot cannon? Okay, pot cannon can do that as well. That it helps then. I was gonna say the BFG can do that without half stacking, but yeah, that's the with a pot cannon you could do that. That's one example then. One hit KO. Reminds me of the time that ZXC did that with a regular with a cooled. You can do it with a cooled cannon and an advanced particle accelerator, and overload it, and then win the game. Technically, stacking is unnecessary, but you need reasonably high rolls. Yeah, the rolls can matter there. Anyway, yeah, so it's very clear though that once you have a weapon cycler, it does stick around longer. But even at 10, they don't stick around forever on a combat bot. Because if you're using a cycler, you're probably a combat bot that's using, you've got a larger volley, at least a 3 or 4 weapon volley. You're probably not don't have a tiny volley if you're using a weapon cycler, usually, or at least that's my guess. Certainly in my case, I like weapon cyclers and I use them with my volleys, but they also do go down. These benefit all volley sizes equally. Yeah, they. I mean, it's a percentage, so yeah, technically they would, but I guess I just don't play low volley builds. And also, this was one exception here, or it's one of the few items that's or utilities that's capped. How many do we have that are actually capped? Capped. Let me look in here. Capped. Is this? Nope, there we go. We got right. Oh, this is it. These are the only that are capped. Okay, that's what I thought. That's the only ones I remembered. We were talking about capping versus half stacking yesterday for a bit on the Discord, and these are the only two items that have caps, as opposed to an alternative to capping. And an alternative to half stacking would just be to add caps for anything that is half stackable. Although the effects, the design approaches are very different in those two kinds of things. And I was talking about on the Discord that one of the reasons I don't like I like the idea of half stack in general is that it doesn't involve adding arbitrary or seemingly arbitrary caps, which are just extra magic numbers to remember. And I mean, they're in the description, but still, they are an extra magic number, and they can feel more arbitrary than half stacking, which which then the limitation comes from the items themselves rather than an outside number. So it's kind of nice, but um, core physics one weapon forever. So anyway, but yeah, that was another recent discussion. This, but yeah, in the end, allowing these to, I was thinking, This one has that also. Yeah, this one has that description because it's again a programmatic description like I was talking about last time. Otherwise, it wouldn't even need to mention about stacks because it is that reaching the cap. But storage unit half stack when. Yeah, we made that joke before you were here last time, MTF. um, reduce collective fire time. Oh, but yeah, one of the things I was mentioning is that one of the problems is that yeah, you have a little more trouble. Caps are nice because they allow you to you allow you to more easily control the maximum of something in the design than half stacking. The only way to control the max in half stacking is make sure that the best thing, once half stacked, isn't any better than you want the best ability to be for that number of slots it would take, right? So in that case, for example, I don't really want anything. An experimental weapon cycler gives, the 30% effect is quite good. That's a great number. But if we allowed this to half stack, the maximum potential with a second slot would be even higher, which gives a pretty strong benefit. And so you'd probably want to nerf the experimental weapon cycler percent with the knowledge that it could be half stacked because you have to consider the potential maximum there. Again, it's a 2 slot maximum, but it's still a different maximum. So yeah, so this is that's why these are kind of like still caps instead of being half stack. And then Vector says nerfing the experimental percent and adding half stack sounds like a fine trade off. I mean, you think? I don't know. I guess technically it wouldn't necessarily need to be nerfed by a whole lot because we could because in the end it takes 2 slots. Remember, so what you can say is you drop this to I don't know 25. I mean, even if it's 30, think about not changing anything at all. Don't change the cap. If it's just 30, all right, you take 2 slots and you get 45. That seems a little powerful. So you just kind of keep lowering it until you get to something that you think is worth 2 slots. But then what happens is you've weakened to the 1 slot version, right? Yeah, I didn't like it either. MTS says it didn't like it. Same with Omika, Omika. I like Yeah, I don't like more slots for the same effect either. The only reason it was added as an option with these other items that we have is that it just allows people to do that. In fact, the whole impetus behind it was originally the core analyzer, which is kind of funny because the core analyzer is probably going to change somehow. Um, I don't really like the idea of changing the query analyzer, if only because it's going to affect the other bot designs that use it and what they're capable of. But we don't know what the new effect is yet anyway. So it's kind of funny that I added it specifically for the core analyzers and then threw it onto several other items just as an option. But I wonder how many people, it's too early to tell yet, but I'm saying I wonder how many people are actually going to be using half stack items. Has anyone using them now? The thing is not. It's only in the latest build, and only so many people have played the latest build, so we don't really have info on that yet, or much info yet. But is anyone actually using half stack, or do you plan to use them? All right, Omika says I will definitely use half stack target analyzers. Target analyzer was main. Oh, you're right. Yeah, sorry, Omika. You're right. You're right. It wasn't core analyzer. It was target analyzer. That's the one. I forgot. Getting confused here. This is the main one because yeah, that was the big question because I had to cap it because it's too good of an effect. But we decided yeah, I can go half stack. So yeah, okay, these are less important in that regard. Then never mind. Anyway, going back to this, yeah, I agree. I was just bringing it up as a topic of discussion, but I don't like the idea of making these weapon times half stack as an alternative because I would be pretty much obliged. I would want to drop this. It would just be too good if the effect was left that high. Q cap half stack sounds good though. MTF says I half stacked from target analyzers. Okay, well at least people are half stacking target analyzers, which is yeah the main reason it was added. Then the others are kind of secondary. All right, so back to this discussion though. What do people think about these values here? Um, we're talking about the coverage of the weapon cyclers. Wait, that's an odd direction to take. MTF says I think weapon cycles are comparable to the particle charges. Resource utilities, they have way lower coverage. Other utilities should have lower coverage to compete. I wait. But by the same token, couldn't we just change weapon cycle coverage, increase it? Then they're competitive. This goes both ways. Vectis says normal feedback too many tiers applies 10, 20 to 30. But no, that I don't like that idea because, well, first of all, part of the problem with that is four tiers is nice at least when it can make sense number wise because then you have the base size, the base type, improved, advanced, and then experimental. It's kind of like a thing, um, which I tried to do. There's generally four tiers because that also gives you a different kind of distribution. You have one prototype, which is generally rare, harder to get. It's kind of on an off tier, and then there's the other three, which are easier to acquire as regular items. So if they were removed, there would literally only become two uh, more frequently accessible weapon cyclers. And there is a limit to how common an item can be. They can't be more common than just the average commonness, which is already what you have with weapon cyclers. So if for example, we removed a tier of weapon cycler, that just means you're going to find fewer weapon cyclers compared to other items. Just catching up with chat there. Anyway, so I mean, mm, I think balance-wise and fairness, we could increase weapon cycler coverage. They're only mass one. Hmm. But they do have lower integrity than most others. They do have lower integrity, except for the entry level particle chargers. Also, we skipped Accelerators, but we're going back to those. Any other stuff? But I don't know. I think it's probably fine to have one of the kind of offensive combat utils being lower coverage, and so it's going to last longer than the others. They don't all need to have an equal rate to get shot off, so I think it's probably fine as is. I don't see a strong reason to change it. They don't have to be equivalent in that regard. I think it's fine. No, but that's yeah. I think we'll just leave it that way. And then there's the other accelerator, which we skipped here, skipping around because kind of cyclers kind of tie into this other discussion and the fact that we got sidetracked with the low coverage. But anyway, accelerators. What do people think about accelerators? I think they're good, um, especially the higher tier, but even lower tier ones can be good on the right build. If you've got uh, a multi kinetics volley and an extra utility slot to throw it in, that's pretty decent even at 30%. Ah, okay. Vector says I don't use the Kinestriders, but that may be more relevant now that the lower range in Gauss rifles reduced. Yeah, Gauss rifles and coil guns both have their lower range reduced, which means they benefited a lot less from Accelerators. I mean, it did increase their damage, but now it's going to increase it by even more and also bring it back up to kind of where they were. But only weird thing about them is they have the same effect on high damage weapons. Um, what do you mean they have the same effect on high damage weapons? I mean, it's a percentage effect. They're mediocre. I don't use them much over other utils. They're significantly worse than particle chargers. Yes, they are, and they're definitely different than particle chargers. And yeah, they're worse than particle chargers. But that's also the nature of what they're buffing. I didn't want them to be equivalent to particle accelerators in terms of what they can do. Um, their behavior is definitely different. The thing about, remember, one of the differences between thermal and kinetic weapons is thermal weapons have a smaller damage range. Um, Kinetic weapons have a wide damage range. They tend to do more damage than thermal weapons, but they can also do much less damage than thermal weapons because the range is larger. So if you can up their minimum, then they're going to be doing, on average, more damage than thermal guns still. So either one, it's just a different way of working them. A lot of KI weapons have a high base damage with a similar damage range, so you raise the min damage by a small percent and hit the cap already. Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, actually, yeah. Too. Also, this is oh, the minimum damage of 50%. Yeah. Once you hit the cap, that's true. Yeah, you can't. It won't go higher. And yeah, 50%. That's true. That's a large percent for that actually. So yeah, that's true. It would actually be less effective in that sense. Remove the restriction, but cannot increase it beyond the weapon's maximum. That's an interesting idea. I'd have to look at all the weapon damage values to think about that some more. And then there's MTF saying kind of sucks for the entire game until C. Isn't that like the opposite of what other people are saying? MTF. Also, I don't know what you mean. I mean, I think they're pretty decent beforehand. Let me open. Yeah, exactly. There you. M. Uh huh. Tone does. There you go. It depends on your build. Again, as usual, everything depends on your build. But yeah, I use kin accelerators too. They have a noticeable effect. I would rather have stack targeting lasers. Yeah, so it also depends. Remember, in the end, it also depends on what things you can get your hands on. In an ideal world, you can pick any parts, but you can't pick any parts in Cogmind. You have to pick from the ones that you're finding or salvage. Okay, let me just open up the weapons here. All right, so what we can do here is we're back onto small font again. Sorry, but now I can actually see stuff. Numbers. All right, so what you can do here is insert a new column. And we can calculate out kin accelerator effects. So kin accelerator, let's say, let's just do the 40% increase of minimum. And see how that compares to maximum. Looking at what chat's saying, it's definitely enough from vehicle stacks, other stuff. Anyway, okay, what are we doing here? This is Z143. Oh, we're looking for X. Gonna wait. What? Where'd that go? Oh, there it is. Never mind. It's just starting out this stuff for the first time, so it takes a little longer. Let's just round these to whole numbers. Don't need to get confused with non-whole numbers. So, if you look here, this is this column here. Actually, see. This is a 40% kin accelerator here. Skipping back to the top there. And the other thing we'd probably want to do. Oh, can you do this? It'd take a little longer to do that. Figure out how to do that. I was gonna say you could color these based on what would be perfect to do is highlight these when they're a certain value relative to the values to their left. That's actually would be a really nice idea. This formatting. Let me just try this real quick. Normally I wouldn't do this kind of stuff on stream, but let me see. Y143 greater than Y143. Actually, it's a good thing, so I'll use another color here, greenish color. All right, this probably works. No, that didn't work. Didn't work. I thought I could paste the format. It would work. Oh well, whatever. Didn't work. Yeah, epic Cogmind spreadsheet speed run moment. Yes, I'm trying to speed run spreadsheets. This does not usually work very well, especially since I'm trying to keep my mind on the actual data we're working with here. Normally, I do a lot of my formatting beforehand and then analyze that. But anyway, it would be really nice to highlight this. But actually, wait. Well, if I just set it to begin with, it should work. Let me just no, but I can't do that with the cell rules. Damn it. Shoot. Let me try this one more time. Can I just, I'll just change it to a range then. The range here, that's not gonna, it doesn't understand this. Or does it? It's doing something. Actually that's working, isn't it? Yeah, it looks like it's actually working. I'm just not gonna bother with the formatting. Oh, what? What? Oh, come on. It won't let me do that. Wait, what? Isn't it working? It looks like it's working. Huh. It looks like it's working, but it doesn't let me save it. Wait, no. Did that number just change? It even left some artifacts. Anyway, whoops. No, I don't want to replace that. Never mind. It fooled. Yeah, it told me. It looked like it was fooling me. It looked like it was working for a second there. All right. Yeah. Really buff your spreadsheet program. Yeah. This is very old, but it's actually pretty decent. I mean, it's amazing. This Excel is actually awesome. Even this really old version just does so much stuff and does it really well too, for the most part. I used to use Open Office for several years, and it was just such a pain to do anything. And it was just ridiculous. But Excel usually works really well the first time. But anyway, I don't want to spend too long looking at this on stream, so we're just gonna just kind of glance at it. But anyway, the whole point of this column here was to show what if we take a kin accelerator that gives 40% to the minimum damage without any consideration for maximum, right? So I'll highlight that column here. Big fan of the A3 sniper rifle change down here. Oh yeah, okay, 84. Not that it matters whatsoever. Yeah, so what we want to do is compare and see how do these numbers compare to the maximum. So maybe we could just remove that restriction. So what it does, yeah, some of these prototype guns in here get up to 28. Here's one that most people don't know about yet. 21. So yeah, what it should have done, it would have been nice if we could highlight whichever of these are higher than the maximum, and then we could see it at a glance how many there are. I like that a lot, being able to do that kind of thing. Like that's what I do with the ranges here, highlight ranges, but it's a static number instead of a spreadsheet based number, which is different, and it's a little more complicated to do something like that. But yeah, with the ranges, it helped a lot. Just be able to spot any differences. You can see they really stand out. But that's one of the nice things about working with spreadsheets is that you can do stuff like that, and it helps analyze the data. So anyway, I'll figure out how to do it later if we need to. But for now, it looks like the changes are not the limitation is not massive. Compact coil gun, that's not even something Cogmind can get. I don't believe that's on a drone. Actually, I could have marked all the things that Cogmind couldn't get either. I didn't color them differently. Those could be have different name, background color or something. Anyway, we've got enhanced coil gun. Has anyone noticed anything else interesting worth looking at here? I haven't looked down at the cannons yet. We're just looking at guns, which is there could be a difference between guns and cannons, as you might expect. See the coil gun? Look at the coil gun. Went from it would have been past maximum, but it's not anymore. Same with the Gauss rifle. It just brings them up to maximum. I wonder how much of that played into this when I was looking at kin accelerator data and what the potential effects would be. Okay. Anyway, guns seem fine. There's very minor changes. The cannons now. Look down at cannons. Can I up this size? There we go. I'm gonna up the size for you guys, and so that you can see it a little better. Check out the cannons here. Kin accelerator plus 40% damage. Again, this is also 40. It's not 50. So normally we should make another column for the 52 for your absolute maximums, but I'm just picked the middle number because the maximum is 50%, right? Yeah, it's 50. All right. 112 on the Omega. AWS, that doesn't count. Graviton, 46. So yeah, at 40%, it seems like for the most part, 40% brings a lot of even cannons only to around their maximum, especially in the base cases. So that's not that bad. Would have normally made a separate column, but all right, here's 50%. Again, no highlighting. But I mean, the 10% change in that is not going to be a massive difference. Mass driver doesn't really. That's like a massive range. So yeah, it's not a massive effect. I think we could remove that limitation. I'm in favor of removing the limitation. What among these things does it break? This is what I'm curious about. But yeah, exactly. 50% only pushes a few of them over by a little bit. It's not a massive difference, and it'll simplify it a bit. So really, yeah, I mean, I'm always for simplification too. So yeah, all right, we'll do that. Let's change that. I'm gonna change kin accelerators and put that to my other notes here. All right, so yeah, kin accelerator is going to be allowed to increase beyond maximum. I like kinetic buffs. Removing the limit, just make the weapons do a flat amount if it's over max. Yeah, that would be the result. It would end up doing a flat amount. This is the case with the limit too. Well, it's the case with the limit if you bring it the minimum to the maximum. Otherwise, it's not the case. Vectus. I mean, it can still have a range, but yeah, this would be the effect of increasing beyond the limit. Oh, it's the same. It's the same if you reach the limit, yes. But a lot of weapons didn't even reach the limit, if you noticed. But yeah, all right, we'll do that buff. I'm not going to change it in the text here. Well, okay, I'll change it in the text, even though it's not going to matter, but it'll help people who are watching be less confused. Actually, what would it be? It would be increases ballistic gun cannon minimum damage by 30%. That would have to be a separate sentence, but yeah, I'm not going to bother writing it all out then. But and I'm going to have to probably explicitly say that you're allowed to increase it above the maximum. But this shows how much I play KI. Yeah, I know you don't play many kinetics or any. I love playing kinetics, so this is a nice benefit for me. I like kin accelerators actually. As long as I'm using a bank of kinetic stuff, I've always liked just an across the board damage buff for them. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be the same benefit as particle accelerators and chargers, but still quite good. All right, launcher loader is basically your quantum capacitor for launchers, and it's 2 slots. So it's fine the way it is. It does allow you to do some fun, crazy things with launchers. And welcome, Lord of All Cheese. Lord of All Cheese says, streaming a literal spreadsheet is not far off from streaming and asking roguelike. Yep. This is, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is Excel the Stream Part 3. Not quite as exciting as playing actual Cogmind, but I think for some of the people here, their hearts are jumping up and down even faster than when they play Cogmind. When can we expect the Excel Cogmind port? People have made roguelikes in Excel. It's actually someone did that. At least one person did that. I think it's more than one now. Did that for 70RL 1 year. Is make a roguelike you actually play in Excel through just crazy formulas and stuff. You can move around and attack and fight, and obviously it can change all your stats on the screen at the same time. I didn't actually play that, but I did read about it. There's an Excel roguelike, which is kind of neat. Oh, there's a Doom Excel port too. There's a port for Doom on everything. There's really a Doom Excel port. Actually, I might have seen that one using different shading in the cells. I think I might have seen that one. There's just so many. It's pretty amazing all the stuff that they ported Doom to over the decades. Anyway, all right. Let's. I'm gonna leave these. Their QC has already gotten rebalanced multiple times. I think it's okay now. Um, this is actually a base of 10 coverage per slot. It's set at 10. The only reason it's 20 here is because it's a 2-slot. So what about, all right, we're down to the melee attack time reduction utilities. I think they're fine. These use stacking and they're capped at 50, so you can get the best, or you can stack some of the smaller ones and they're good. I think they're fine. I've never really felt unbalanced. They're good, and they're good. Something you want to have on a melee build if you can get your hands on it. And they're not too hard to acquire, or at least micro actuators aren't. These are very hard to acquire. These are pretty rare. I mean, they're both rare and prototype. I'm pretty sure they're rare in terms of their commonness and their prototypes, so that makes them extremely hard to find. But Actuator Arrays. These are probably balanced. I'd have to hear. Does anyone have an opinion on these? I'm figuring they're balanced because part of the thing about actuator arrays is their effectiveness is really determined by how large your melee volley is. Obviously, this is only going to be for multi wielders. It was the utility that was added specifically to support multi wielding as a play style, as opposed to just relying on the base chance of follow up attacks. But melee attacks are incredibly powerful. So if you've got a few extra melee weapons and combine it with arrays, it's pretty good. But I never noticed the integrity was so high on these. Yeah, they are. That is true. They have slightly higher coverage too. At the same time. The progression you think is strange? It's less, not entirely. I think it's fine. I mean, it's not linear, but that's fine. Who says it has to be linear? Try a quad plus melee with arrays. But yeah, they're nice. The thing is, I think the main thing about arrays is when you're running a melee build, you're not necessarily going to have one or find one. I wonder, what bots actually have them, whether you can get them from other bots or not. I don't think you can because there's no multi-wielders out there. There's very few. There might be more in the future. Multi-wielding bots. But what we can do is use the famous Cogminder and go for bots and parts and look for wait, what? I'm looking for the wrong thing. There we go. Actuator array. There we go. Yeah, I cut you as one of the only multi-wielders in A6. Yeah. So, and Wardrun. Look, it's the multi-wielders. Oimika's trying to make base tier. Oh, saying Vex is trying to make base tier 8 and nerf nobody else. For on a part nobody uses. Oh, you mean the lower one? You think? Does that's the question too? Is the lower tier good enough? But I cut you here with is using femto actuators, and they have a multi wielding, so they can benefit from experimental actuator array. And A6 also has experimental. War drone has experimental. They're all experimental. I wonder why. These are also 3 out of the 4 bots that use femtos. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, is 10, I don't know. I think the problem with these is it really scales with the number of melee weapons you have. So don't want even the lowest or the worst one to be quite too good. 10 and 12 are really close now. 12, 14, 16. It's probably fine. I'd have to actually to even consider buffing these. I'd have to look at all the actual follow-up chances again and how they're and the calculations and the results. But the base follow-up chance for a lot of weapons, I haven't done a multi-wielding build, a serious one in a while. But the base chances it's like ranges from 10 to 25% or so. I think actuators could use a buff considering Sever's terrible now. What? Sever's not terrible. It's fine. You can't say something's terrible only because it doesn't work against like some very specific stuff. Sever even got buffed. Big time. Sure we can. Okay, you can say whatever you want. Nobody is using nano swords. Maybe people should use nano swords more. Um, nano swords now have 25% sever, but you just don't want to use it against the bots that are immune to the sever crit. Oh yeah, I figured you didn't know about that, MTF. All these sever chances were increased by quite a lot. They were all like doubled or tripled. Um, the chance of severing is now mega high on a lot of things. So 40% used to be way outside the normal range for the saws, and now a lot of weapons started to catch up to that. The great sword is now 30% sever. It was like 10 before or something. You can even get Centrium Greatsword at 40% sever. 40%. So if you don't destroy whatever you hit, there's actually a pretty good chance you're just going to cut it off. Pretty good overall. Um, I didn't even look at this one actually, or maybe I did. No, I didn't. I didn't modify it because it also has super max damage. Yeah, I did look at that. But anyway, brawlers and duelists did not need to be buffed at all. Brawlers and duelists have been buffed. Oh yeah, did you see this change? Did you know about this one? Did you look at this change, MTF? The fact that not actually, this is the secondary change. This is also quite a big buff, but the buff on the melee weapon impact weapon damage is kind of ridiculous too. I think people are going to go. It's going to get kind of powerful. Impact good. Well, I'm sure you'll use it and say it's not good. Remember, the problem with impact is also the corruption. I mean, not the corruption. Well, the corruption is an issue, but the fact that you can't hit cores as easily with it. But the thing is, with this much damage, you're going to start destroying parts a little more easily. And this much damage and the smashing together combined. So it'll be at least decent, I think, for a lot more people. But somebody was really wait, what? Somebody was really mad about impact. I think it was Tone. Wait, who's mad? I thought Tone said it was good. What do you mean mad? Was it me? They get attacked by a brawler or something? Yeah, unironically excited to try and impact overwhelm build. Anyway, I'm sure this will be something. Yes, exactly. People are going to be excited to try. We'll see how many people continue doing it after they try. But yes, there were a lot of changes to impact. Tone was mad about it. Yeah, but mad about what? Who wants brawlers to crit more often and deal more damage? Yeah. Well, the thing about brawlers is they're slow and they take a while to reach you, and you prioritize them. right? You're supposed to prioritize them and not get bonked anyway. Um, and I think when you do that, you're pretty high chances of success overall. I mean, you don't get bonked a lot. It is possible, but yeah, they're scary. They've always been scary. Hey, Luigi, welcome. All right. Back to here. So anyway, I don't really have any reason to change these that I can see. Are we gonna ever add another impact weapon of a rating 7? Uh, I don't know. I mean, more will be added eventually, but the base types no. If you notice, even the other types here, the impact is one of the, is the way melee kind of worked was that impact has all of the low tier stuff. Remember that slashing and piercing doesn't even start until tier 3 and tier 4, and these start early. Um, Wait, whoops, wrong space. Yeah, these start early. The thing about these is they're all the later game ones are almost all are prototypes. Remember, this doesn't even count. That's Master Terror Claws comes off something. Solid Blades don't count. These stop pretty much. Non-prototypes stop at 6. Um, and down here you have an exception with the Force Lance. But in general, it wasn't really able or wanting to add too many late game non-prototype, non-unique type special melee weapons. Partially because the damages start getting too high. Um, for balance purposes, melee in general is a very damaging type of weapon, more so than regular weapons. Right? You can get much higher damage off of these than regular guns and cannons at the same rating. But the problem with that is once you get to the end game, it's hard to keep the numbers reasonable. Obviously, that's one of the things that I'm kind of worried. We'll see what's going to happen with these late game melee weapons. But again, they don't target the core, so the impact is a little different and not going to be as much of an issue. But we'll see what happens. There will be more uniques, I'm sure of that. 100% sure. There will be more unique melee weapons. But anyway, yeah. So that was the main problem there is just scaling numbers, and I didn't want it to scale too far. But anyway, yeah. So there are a few four melee weapon players. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't exactly, Vectus. The point of arrays is if you're using a lot of melee weapons, and I'm talking 4 or 5 melee weapons. So yeah, I don't want to buff these specifically because it makes those builds uh, even better than they already are. They are pretty good, to be honest. They could be incredibly powerful, and I don't see a need to buff those. These aren't meant for people who are only using one extra backup weapon or whatever. They're meant for using several, because that's when the chance starts to really matter, because it matters per weapon, right? And each weapon already has its own follow-up chance. So you're gonna almost, if you have these along with it's a full volley of multiple melee weapons, you're pretty likely to get in second hits, and first hits are already pretty strong and devastating. You get in multiple melee hits, and you're starting to do you're easily doing over 100 damage with just 2 hits. But anyway, yeah, so I'm not changing that. Force boosters, I mean, I might change it later if I get more feedback on it and people who are actually doing it. But I don't see a need to currently. I'd like to try it out more myself, actually. I do like melee builds. And I'm talking multi-wielders. Force booster. These are a weird weapon, or a weird utility, actually. These are in a super weird place, which actually brings back a whole discussion from very early Cogmind utility design. And the whole thing behind these is that they're a high toggle item. The only way to make these kind of viable, because these can be incredibly powerful. If you're a melee bot fighting point blank at something, you can get a free ton of extra damage on your melee attacks by not even moving. Um, just stay there and you get a ton of extra damage. Now the problem is they have a ridiculous upkeep in order to kind of balance that, because you need some kind of balancing effect. The problem is by using upkeep to balance it, that means you only turn it on when you're doing the attacking, and then you turn them off. You're probably only going to have one. You'll only have one of these attached, probably. But anyway, you have it. You turn it on, you attack, and then once you're done attacking, you turn it off. Now that obviously you can keep it on until you stop attacking consecutively. But in the end, it's a high toggle part. And so in early Cogmind development, we came across this with a number of parts, and that's excessive toggling parts. And what do we want to do? Do we want to instead make parts like this? Now we don't want to go too far in this direction, but do we want to make parts like this, for example, only drain the resources when they're used? That was a very early discussion. The only problem with that is just that it becomes a little less obvious because it's no longer a part of the upkeep stat. It becomes a part of the description of the item. So it's not quite as obvious. There's now there weren't in the original Cogmind, but now we do have a couple items that do take resources only when they take effect. And because they're passive, there's the side effect blocking effect of one of the parts will give you that requires matter. I think it's the component analysis that requires matter to take effect, but it only consumes the matter if it takes effect or when it takes effect, and it only does the effect if you have the resources. So the thing is, we can say that this only takes the resources when it can take effect, but that kind of hides the cost. It becomes less obvious. The cost of upkeep will literally appear on your HUD, and you can toggle items and see the changes. That hides a value inside the description. It hides a value that is taking effect kind of silently, and you don't have an easy way to gauge that either by looking at your HUD, because the HUD, for example, heat generation, the HUD will conveniently divide your heat generation from a volley across the entire duration of the volley. But that disappears too if you don't have the effect. I mean, we can kind of say that, okay, if you have the current resources to use it, then it will be included in the calculations. It just starts to get pretty complicated, and I guess it's possible to do some of those QOL things. It's not impossible, but it becomes a lot more internal work. And not so. I mean, that's possibly doable. But in the end, I just don't like the fact that it's still hiding things in the description as opposed to the item stats. And anyway, so this was a big big discussion early on, and that's kind of the intro to the whole thing. Now I'm going to actually look at chat. I've been ignoring chat, so I can actually keep my train of thought here. And now I'm going to look at chat and see what people have been saying about this. All right, what are people saying about this? Let's go back to here. Force boosters are complete garbage. Oh, okay. Require too much util toggling. Yes, that's what we're talking about here. They always feel awkward. I would like to add these fixed amount of momentum boost that makes them worthwhile. Wait, what? What do I mean that? See that. Also, you have to do 10,000 mental calculations the way momentum mechanics work if you know if this item will put you over a maximum or give you little zero benefit. This I agree with too. Yeah. The way these were implemented, the way these were implemented is was because we already had momentum mechanics, and so what I wanted to do was, okay, let's take an existing mechanic, and this can tie into that mechanic, and that's a way to indirectly give you this benefit. But it's true, you could already be at the maximum. The main purpose behind the booster to begin with was that it's something you're using when you're stationary anyway. So technically, that if you kind of get that idea, it really shouldn't come into the calculations at all. You shouldn't really worry too much about that. It's mainly if you're stationary and you want to attack and get extra damage. Now, if that's the purpose, I mean, that is the purpose. So I was going to say, if that's the purpose, maybe there's another way to make that more obvious, right? Or it's just maybe it just directly increases your melee damage, and instead of giving you momentum, right? Turn it into something like that. That would be a whole different way of doing it. Is there the main difference? The only difference then is you can't use this for ramming, which I guess wouldn't be a terribly sad loss because you're not ramming a ton of stuff anyway. It doesn't matter, I guess, if you're running around kicking stuff and crushing stuff with treads, but that is an alternative because that's kind of the point. Because momentum doesn't work at low speed and caps out fast at high speed. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea, though. Again, the idea is you use these when you're stationary. If advanced force booster added 30% momentum damage, it would be great. As opposed to 5 momentum, which is like 10% and 100. Yeah. Add a new stat upkeep per volley for you. Yeah, no. There are enough toggle utils in this game that maybe no. That's not even really a stat. That's like, well, I see what you mean, but no, we can't add more stats. The stat menus, that stat window's full anyway. But upkeep per volley, that's kind of yeah. Anyway, we're gonna skip that. Force booster would increase damage of bots knocked back into walls. Should that's too specific. Twitch chat on stream. Hi, mom. Yes. mm-hmm. We're working on focus here, not trying to go on off on tangents, Vectus. Well, this is one of the things that I think people might not be noticing, Vectus, according to your comment here, is this is effective momentum. It's not your actual momentum. And the whole point is it's effective momentum for melee attacks and ramming. It's literally, it's mainly, it's part of the attack part of the equation. It has nothing to do with movement or momentum, technically. But upkeep per Vectus is very high. I'm gonna get that on screen right there. Upkeep. I can highlight comments on stream too. Chat. All right. I can highlight comments for free. I thought the damage calculation from these effective momentum times scalar times prop seed times mass. Um, yeah, mass is only involved for ramming. I'd have to look at the details again. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about, this none of that really matters right now because the whole point is I want to talk about these and making this not a toggle item. So I think if the whole purpose behind this is to give melee weapons and the main purpose again we're going to cut out ramming in this case, but if the whole purpose is to make them more damaging, maybe just literally give you a melee damage boost directly. uh, Actually, wait a minute. That I don't know if that's going to solve the problem though. Wait 1 second. That fixes this part of the equation, but it doesn't solve this one actually. Because part of the reason this is so expensive is because it increases damage of an already very damaging thing. Especially, yeah, if you're charging, you can get some ridiculous damage on the momentum. But anyway, this is very similar to, actually, in talking about this, go back to, what are we going back to? Sorry, I was reading chat and ignoring it for a second. Particle chargers and accelerators here. Here we go. They need the same thing up here. We skipped this discussion on these because honestly, the force booster was the most extreme example, and that's kind of where the bigger part of the discussion was had a long time ago. This is years ago when we were talking about upkeep on utilities. So stuff like these are specifically, these only matter, these have upkeep every turn, but they only matter when you're firing. Which means ideally you turn these off when you're not firing. Now, so optimal play in some scenarios will require that you turn these off and toggle. You toggle, but I was going to say this. But in practice, I mean, only the really expensive ones are where it starts to matter. You know, like normally if you're using some of these other things, you're not toggling in between fight shooting and not shooting because you don't really need to. You have enough spare. You have plenty of spare energy and generation. It's only going to matter in a really long or difficult confrontation, right? or if you're using shields, that's kind of a different issue. But anyway, it's only in certain situations they're going to need to toggle. The force boosters are kind of an exception because and you can argue, for example, this 20 energy upkeep on a particle accelerator, advanced particle accelerator. These things start to get really resource intensive if you leave them on, and that can matter even in a medium length battle. So that's why I kind of felt over the years that maybe we didn't really need to address this. Um, Part of how we actually addressed this in the earliest alpha versions of Cogmind was we made processors require no resources, not removable, and you didn't need to toggle them. Processors actually used to work in a similar way as these, but we turned all of those into the new, the existing current for many years now way that processors work, and that was kind of like an alternative way to deal with their requirements and not require a bunch of extra toggling. So the number of parts now that requires this kind of toggling, I think it's gone down a whole lot. And so I haven't really felt like, when I'm talking about this as a player, when I've been playing, I haven't felt a strong need to toggle all the time, right? And if I do start feeling that need coming on, or I can tell from the confrontation that we're going to be facing that, or our resources are kind of on the edge, then we're going to start toggling a little, when it's necessary. I think that that's a whole tactical thing at that point. It's less of a strategic consideration, more of just a short term. Okay, these are this confrontation. We're going to need to do a little more toggling with these parts, and I think that's fine in Cogmind. I mean, Cogmind is they're going to be doing some swapping of parts. They're going to be doing some toggling. It's about the minor controls and tweaks that allow you to get ahead, but it doesn't seem too excessive. I think the exception is force boosters in particular. So um, toggling, yeah, okay. Only because it says toggling is rare for me outside of Axis Zero. Right. Yeah, that's my experience too. It's only in the late game, very late game, with really resource intensive builds and really longer fights that you're going to start having to do this kind of toggling. So I think it's really been the problem kind of disappeared compared to what people were thinking originally years ago. Um, Energy deficit flight player not detected. Toggle charges automatically before performing an attack. Too much. Toggling treads wheels work. Yeah, toggling treads wheels. That's why that actually toggling treads wheels. That brings up a good point. That was automatic. Wait, why don't we just automate it then? Well, we can't automate it. Treads and wheels are different. You can't automate it because you might not want them on. That's the thing. With treads and wheels, it's 100% clear cut that you want your treads activated when you're attached, when you're attacking, and you don't want your wheels, and you want your wheels for when you're moving. That's a clear cut thing. But with resource costs like this, that's a completely different story. You might want to expend the cost, you might not to not. You have to decide it. So, um, right, that's what I'm talking about here, Vectis. Just change what I want to do is just change the force booster to increase the damage of melee weapons. Somehow I haven't figured out the details of that. I'll figure that out later. But that's the point. I'm just going back now to this discussion here, which is sorry. I'm reading some older chat messages too, so we're kind of skipping around. But I'm trying to think about the resource cost then, because the reason these are high resource costs and they would still be high, even changing the effect, which was not necessarily an intended part of me looking at this item, but chat came up with it, so I like that, so I'm fine with that idea probably. But the resource costs are still going to be high, and so you're still going to be toggling. Hmm. Oh God. Tone says I was thinking about this earlier. The possibility of giving utilities a third state where they automatically turn on if they would have an effect. It's kind of silly. Yeah. High heat good for ITN. Yeah, actually. Yeah, with the that's right. Get your thermoelectric network on, and then just use a bunch of force boosters. They can power themselves. But yeah, it got into my mind in my run yesterday because I was penalized for not constantly toggling Aegis on and off. But Aegis is a shield, and that's something um, that you would end up having to toggle yourself, even if that was a feature, because of how that works. I can see how you can have a third state for this kind of utility in particular. or some of them anyway. But also, we don't really want a third state for utilities. That starts to cause problems. The only way a third state, it wouldn't be a third state. It would have to be a separate, completely separate toggle, which runs into UI issues. Now, the whole reason some Cogmind items have three states is because it doesn't present UI issues. It allows you to cycle through the states, even though sometimes that is kind of annoying when you're cycling through overloadable or other parts that have multiple states. But it allows you to use the same interface uh, to interact and change the states. Now, if we're going to use something like a third state, in this case, it would actually need to be a separate toggle, I think, along the side, like a little radio button that says this item here, use its resources if we can take advantage of it, use its resources when that happens, like attacking with melee or whatever. To do that would require that, which also requires a separate. Then you need a separate keyboard interface for that, and also space on the UI on the HUD in order to stick this extra little button indicator thing. So FRUs are not problematic. When I said that, Tone, I was thinking about FRUs. They're a completely different story, though. I'm talking about the ones you do toggle a lot. FRUs, you don't toggle a lot. You toggle weapons a lot to turn them on and off. But the thing is, if your weapon has an overloadable state, you have to toggle through the state, which can get kind of annoying. But yeah, right. Vectis here comes up with a good point. Or puts in, yeah, this is puts into words basically what I was saying here too. Can read that there. Yeah, the infrastructural weightlifting would be done to replace the upkeep system with a cost per activation system. A lot of technical rigor. Yeah, it depends on whether or not it's worth actually doing that. The thing is, also, it's not only a question of whether or not it's worth doing that. It's also a question of or whether or not the results would actually solve all existing issues without introducing new issues, which you can't even be completely sure of yet. I bet there's some things we haven't seen that it would cause problems elsewhere. Uh, Architectural issues completely aside, um, I believe that could be a problem. But anyway, devices to whoa, what devices? Okay, that's another idea. All right, that's actually how I solved the siege issue. Well, that's a slightly different, but it isn't the first example of such a thing. An idea was for devices to have a warm up period. Warm up period, so that means you can't turn them on immediately, right? You toggle it on, and it takes some time to come on. That's actually a really interesting idea. Now, uh, um, hmm, that's a really interesting idea. That gets you thinking of all kinds of things. What do you mean by that, Vectis? You think it's a really good idea because so much of the technical heavy lifting has been done? What technical heavy lifting? I can hear MTF complaining about the energy nerfs already. Which energy nerfs? Big FF toggler, that one? Oh. Well, the thing is, we wouldn't want all utilities necessarily. Well, different utilities might end up having different warm up periods. Some might have no warm up periods, like instant startup, like force fields in particular. Force fields requiring force fields. Well, no, force field having a warm up, as long as there's no warm down period. Force fields having a warm up period is actually probably not terrible, as long as you can shut things off. That's the thing. If you have to leave a force field on and it's like constantly draining you while you're trying to shut it off, that would be pretty hilarious. It'd also be not funny because you just die, but with a warm up, you wouldn't want to toggle things off because you wouldn't want to turn them back on right away when you need them. Yeah, yeah. You have miserable gameplay experience. Which one are you describing? Okay, you're not replying to Tone there, are you? You're replying to the force field not being able to turn off. Just making sure what you're commenting on. MTF. Yeah, all this sounds terrible. Oh, Oimika says both of them. You're saying turn off and on. Oh, so Oimika, you don't like the idea of toggling. I mean, warm ups. I mean, it's less flexibility. it's a way to pretty elegantly and logically solve this particular issue, which we already decided is not a big issue. It only becomes a big issue. I mean, the biggest issue is with force boosters. That's literally the kind of example of this. You can say you look down the energy upkeep list. Like say you've got ECM suites, they have a high cost too. But the thing is, those are toggle parts, but they're also they're they're much less of an issue because you toggle them for stretches of time, not during fighting. Fighting is short term toggling. The ECM is going to be a different story. We're not down to talking about that, but FF warm-up would change the way I play for the worse. Hey, Krasanovich, welcome. What's all this talk about terrible mechanical ideas that I hate? Yes, we're talking about warm-up periods for utilities. It wasn't my idea. It was Tone's idea, but I think it's an interesting idea. It's worth discussing anyway. I can say how I can see how it's. I can't imagine. I can't imagine it really being added, but it's been worth discussing in a logical sense and thinking about it in an architectural sense. But um, it'd be a pretty big change, and not necessarily for the better in all areas, unless you say that only some utilities require warm up, right? Which I think it's a perfectly fine thing to say that, but then you have the question that it's going to start requiring that you remember certain different warm ups for different things. Um, or you have a limited set of things which require warm-ups just by necessity for balance reasons, and in either balance or anti-tedium. But and in doing so, how extensive is this whole new mechanic? How many parts does it actually use it? It's the same thing with half stack. Are we going to use this on enough parts for it to actually be worth adding at all? Because we don't want too many unique mechanics. Nah, meta field with a warm-up period. There you go, MTF. Vectus likes metafield warm up. MTF not so keen. Yeah, Bad Emperor. I think Bad Emperor makes the point that I was talking about there. I think that's exactly the point. I like the idea of warm up period for really strong utilities with strong drawbacks that feel impactful. Warm up periods for force fields is just annoying. Yeah, I mean I agree. Like if we are gonna have warm ups, it wouldn't force fields wouldn't have a warm up. It would be a warm up on probably other stuff. But well, then of course Tone brought up the idea with the Aegis specifically, but. Hmm. You can draw the line pretty cleanly at a certain upkeep threshold, I think. Hmm. So yeah, again, it really depends on which items we're talking about. So with the force booster here, we've got a massive upkeep, but it's only used. This is an upkeep towards frequency ratio issue, where the frequency on these for toggling is very high for very high upkeep, and we don't see that across too many items. So that's why it's not too big of an issue, and I was mainly discussing it in terms of this. So going back to the original discussion, so we're gonna drop that part of the discussion for a bit to go look at the force booster here. So let's assume that force boosters just outright increase. Oh, sorry, didn't get quite enough sleep yesterday. Force boosters outright increase melee damage by a certain percent. They're basically going to be like your kin accelerator and particle charger, but for melee. I guess that was kind of also it was kind of nice to do this in a more interesting mechanical way that's very very melee-ish, which I like. So I like tagging this to momentum. But anyway, assuming we make it more directly that, what is that? Is that going to change much in terms of the upkeep? I guess the upkeeps on all these could just be lowered. Actually, wait a minute. You know what I just remembered? We didn't get there yet. Wait, we skip past it up already. But I just remembered we already have melee damage increasing utilities. Uh, right there. We have the melee analysis suites, which do stack and increase melee damage. Static. The melee damage is almost irrelevant. Yeah. Again, the analysis suite, the values of these are kind of based on multi-wielding, the potential damage you could do, but they're also, yeah, it's definitely a secondary effect on these. The main purpose of these was the melee accuracy. But I can see actually changing these as well, based on the fact how we changed accelerators, perhaps. Especially based on the ratings you can acquire these things at. Back then, I was afraid of melee weapons getting higher damage. These are worth looking at again. Core Analyzer needs to warm up. Yeah, a tone says here you can remove the damage from those and it won't affect my opinion of them in any way. Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't really. I think it was added. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the main point of these is again, it's actually is meant to be the accuracy. I think actually part of the reason this other thing was added too was to get them make them slightly different from targeting computers. Um, oh, that's right. Yeah, because they do have different name, it gives them different unique, just different unique slant. But yeah, that's not cannot exceed max damage is maybe abusable. Oh, because these are stackable, right? That's the difference. One difference is these are stackable, and then they not only stack, but these really compound if you have multiple melee weapons. Not that you're going to necessarily hit with as many of them, but they do stack. Remember, like this gives you outright extra damage. That's part of why the numbers are what they are, because you do stack these. Um, it's very common to stack these because you have a lot of extra slots in general on a melee build, on a melee focused build, and so stacking these is you pretty easily have two or three of them. But what if Force Booster increased cap? Increased cap. Oh, you just mean the max damage part of the range? Yeah, I mean that's a totally logical idea that makes sense. I like that. That also allows us. All right, there's a benefit to that. Let me write this down real quick. All right. So I actually like that idea, and I think that's something I would want to do here. Let's. What happens is if we change the effect of these to increase max damage, all that increases the maximum potential damage. It doesn't affect. We'll say it doesn't affect the minimum damage, and if it doesn't affect the minimum, that really plays into the whole melee idea of they have a very wide damage range in general, or especially impact. But some of the, they have a wider damage range. And either way, this is a wider damage range means more randomness, and more randomness means we can afford to lower the upkeep costs on this, um, because it won't always be that powerful. It'll be really powerful sometimes. Not that people are going to really enjoy extra variance in their melee builds, but it's free. You could consider it, as long as the resource costs are lower, it's almost free extra potential damage, right? So yeah, I like that idea. I think we'll do that, and because then I'll be happy to lower the costs. Clank dealing either 45 or 180 damage. No in between. Breaking reinforced walls good. Yeah, yeah. Well, Impact currently is now even more capable. Well, I'd say more capable, but no, it actually not, because I increased the impact damage significantly and then removed the wall resistance. with the wall weakness to impact, which I had only just recently added. But that's still balanced. It's still going to be more likely to get through the walls, though. So the resistance was 25%. Was the resistance 25%? Why was the resistance 25? Are you sure? I was pretty sure it was 50. I thought it was. Anyway. Yeah, so yeah, damage box 50 though. All right, so I'm going to change force boosters. I think we're probably done with these for now. I'm not going to do the numbers now, but yeah, this is going to be lowered and this is going to change the max damage. And yeah. Yeah, all right, that's in my notes. All right, we're going to do that. All right, we're done with force boosters. All right, so glad to have that behind us, and also we didn't result in warm-ups yet. We'll keep the warm-up idea in our mind. All right, the next up, we're gonna have stasis cancelers. Yeah, what do people think about stasis cancelers? Nah, there's no damage resistance on walls, but it alerts all enemies in a radius to the loud sound. Yeah, loud sound, not gonna cut it. If we add sound, that would be very crazy. Stasis canceler, every riffer's favorite util. How about the warm up to the idea of not that? Yeah, yeah. All right, so stasis cancelers, what do people think about these? I mean, they just allow you to get out of stasis faster, which I don't use them, but that's because I don't fly. But um, it's mainly it's mainly a flight thing, and they do allow you to get out of stasis faster, which is really important when you're stuck in stasis, obviously. Oimika says I use this a few times on my fast runs. Okay, it's good to hear. Vector says that I never have, and never will attach one. Ah, okay. MTF says stasis cancelers are in the never use category. What about Tone? Have you used stasis cancelers before, Tone? I would rather wear the old reclamation unit than a stasis canceller. Tone says they are invisible to me. Oh, okay. Wimka says I never have room for this in a real run. That's I think the problem with stasis cancers. Okay, they're good at what they do, but the thing is, they're in Cogmind. You have to compare, the utility slot for or inventory slot against all the other things you could be using it for. And by the time stasis cancelers become potentially useful, which is really in the later game, which is kind of they have a high rating, which is interesting. Maybe they don't need a high rating, huh? Anyway, what if they were low rating? That's something to consider. But one of the things about stasis is that yeah, you just the opportunities for using them is relatively small. It'll only be needed by certain builds and only in certain situations, and so you're not likely to carry one if that contingency is just not really likely to present itself anyway. I would love if these would not take up 50 million garrison spawns. Yeah, that's already been addressed, I think. Or no, or has it? Let me see. No, it hasn't been addressed. Yeah, it's going to be addressed. But garrisons are where you run into a bunch of stasis traps. And armory caches and DSF caches. Yeah, I know. It's because the reason these are appearing there is because they're just late game common items. If they're more useful for late game, you lower the rating. Wouldn't that make it so you'd have to carry it around the whole game? No, it would not actually. That's only true if I'm not sure if you were here at the time, Rooney. I was describing distribution and different types of distribution of parts in Cogmind earlier on, and at a low rating, they would be set like storage units where they can appear at any depth. So that would not have an effect. No. Oh, okay. Marlon brings up an interesting alternative viewpoint here, which is that for builds sensitive to stasis like flight, support boosting utils can be a lot more useful. Right, because they're more useful. they'll not only give you extra support, which helps for escaping stasis, it also helps, when you're not in stasis by giving you extra support. Of course, once you're maxing out on it anyway, that might not be as meaningful, but as in coupler pool delusion. Yes, you did. Well, you don't have to hear the phrase dilution vectors because we could lower the frequency as well. Increase the breadth, but lower the frequency. In my opinion, 1 tier is all we need for this. Make it just a 1 tier lower rating. Well, the thing is, it doesn't need to be too low a rating actually, because it's you don't really care about stasis early on. It's only something that starts to matter even more later, I think. Maybe put it at like rating 5 and have a single tier. Single tier though, that means you've only got 1 strength, but whatever. Well, I mean, part of the idea is that well, I mean, we're just going based on what people are using here. So let me make some notes here. Let armor plating will absorb more damage. Just being what? All right. What? Uh-huh. All right, let me check other bots too. I don't think anyone actually. No, it's this. Nope. Actually, do we have a bot using it? Oh, there is a bot that uses a stasis canceller. Interesting. There is 2 bots that use stasis canceller. 2 bots that use a stasis canceller. What? What if stasis canceller worked in an AoE and negated stasis entirely? Well, all right, that's an idea to consider, as actually thinking about what if what if the stasis canceller effect was changed, how it worked, instead of making it easier to get out of stasis. Yeah, what if you're immune to stasis? That might be too powerful then, or is it something that a bunch of people would use? Or actually, I don't know, maybe that's actually a fine item. The stasis canceller is an item that was designed before Cogmind was released. So back before anyone was even playing, it was the idea of, okay, is the stasis thing? Actually, no, it was early Cogmind. It was early alpha, I think. Yeah, because stasis, the idea of stasis actually wasn't added until early alpha, like right after release. The traps were added. Traps didn't actually exist. AOE though, it's kind of why are you even adding the AOE? I don't get MTF why you're adding AOE as part of the effect. I mean, you can ignore stasis, but what does AOE have to do with it? To help your friends? Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, cancel stasis on even your allies getting stuck in traps. MTF, do you have any friends? Don't you just kill them all? That's it. I'm leaving. Don't leave us, MTF. We're your friends. We're your friends. You know we're your friends. Don't leave us. If you leave us, you won't have any friends. That's not what I meant. Chris Howard says, "Am I asking MTF to kill me?" Please don't. Yes, there you go, Plexion. Unfortunately for MTF, we are actually his friends. Sorry to bear bad news. Yep, stuck with us. As you're stuck with this stasis canceler. No, you're not. We're going to see if we can update it. That's actually a pretty good idea. I like the idea of canceling stasis because, all right, so going back to what I was talking about earlier. Vectus with the botnet, good call. I see even Nightbot's here to join in on the action. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So yeah, I like the idea of changing stasis to completely negate it. I don't know about AOE. AOE sounds like it could be even an upgrade to the stasis canceller. I mean, that's an argument for having even multiple. It's kind of maybe weird to have as an upgrade. Adding AOE is kind of weird unless I architecturally give like the basic one a range of 1 or something like that. But upgradable stasis canceller, yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, extra. It's kind of weird to do that. Most effects don't work that way. Um, but I mean, if you want an AOE stasis canceller, which I can see, I would want to give the base one an AOE effect. But because even without it, it's a good part. I can see that being very useful and something people would use. Basically, you're immune to stasis effects with the stasis canceller. I mean, obviously that it's in the name, right? It does sound like it could do that, but I didn't want it to do that originally because I don't know. I assumed it would be too powerful or it would be able to circumvent things. But now, based on a lot of play experience, what do other people think about this? Would this would become something you definitely consider using? I think part of the problem. Well, I don't know. What if how does it? It seems like you'd end up it being something you carry in your inventory just as backup all the time, right? And then you swap it in when you need to escape stasis. You know what we need for stasis canceller? Warm ups. This is where I need a webcam so you can see the grin on my face. um, what Vectis with a crazy idea? Stasis canceller should charge up from the stasis field to save the force field effect for later. Oh, right, yeah, that's that's nice. That sounds like a totally different item. Actually, this sounds like a really cool item. An item, a force field item that charges itself in stasis fields. Hmm. The final form of the trap scanner. uh, yeah, that sounds like an interesting idea for a later effect. I'm just gonna make a note of that. Not something we're actually gonna have as a utility here or the stasis canceller, but just an interesting idea. Hmm. That's like a whole new class of interesting potential utilities there. Actually, that I'm expanding on my notes here. All right. Yeah, as Chris Sandwich says, it's kind of like a disposable force field, sort of disposable. It's a rechargeable force field in concept, right? Charged externally. It's kind of weird though, logically speaking. Sometimes things in Cogmind like that are sort of weird. Like, why can't you just charge it yourself, et cetera, et cetera? But if you can fit it into the lore somehow or make it work, or just say whatever, it's a game and have fun. Um, Vectis is talking about designing it around the trap stasis traps and designing around that. Note Vectis that this stasis cancers were not actually designed around the traps. They were designed around researchers. So they do have an impact on traps, but it's researchers that are the ones that are mobile and get you stuck in stasis when you maybe don't want it, and you're trying to run away or reposition. That's actually that's one of the bigger reasons. Not it wasn't stasis traps. Reverse remote shield redirects damage dealt to you to your allies instead. Um, these will be better when 1% corruption misfires are a thing. Yeah, 1% corruption misfires will be a potential thing. Researchers to stasis you again immediately. That's true, but it they can't stasis you again immediately. But if you're faster, you're faster than them though. Researchers take a while. Their turns take longer. Stasis beams are actually slower to use for that reason. And if you're faster, the thing is, stasis cancelers are made for faster bots. So if you are if you get out of their stasis, you can move for a more decent amount of turns, perhaps to get behind cover or out of sight entirely. So that's the difference there. But anyway, so back to the original discussion here. All right, so Atone here made a point. I said I wanted to get back to is that discussion earlier. What if they have 100% immunity when the trap springs, but still help escaping if put on after? Um, I see. So they cancel the effects. Okay, that makes sense, actually. Then it's even less useful for traps. It's more about researchers. So stasis cancelers, I don't know. We could just say that they don't have an effect unless they were on before, but then, um, hmm. Then the effect I think starts. I don't know. It's kind of hard to balance this in an interesting and keep it interesting and useful. Uh, can't figure this out at the moment. What was chat saying? Everybody. No one been bothered by stasis beams of researchers? I've been bothered by stasis beams. Also, investigators. Investigators suck. They definitely bother me. Investigators can kill you. So, back to yeah. So the main discussion around stasis cancels, if they completely cancel, how? What's the inter? Sorry, I'm taking more notes here. What's the interaction between when you are first, if you're already in stasis or not? We're gonna leave it at this. I think I'm not gonna find a solution here. I'm gonna think about this later, but I'm gonna take it down as a note, and then we're gonna continue on to the next part, unless someone has other input here. But let me just take down one more note. Joining stasis, too bad for not anticipating getting stasis. That's the thing. I think almost no one would use it if that was the case, unless we say, all right. So what if it keeps the so I mean, what Tone was saying earlier, it keeps the ability to get out of stasis in that case, which starts to get a little more complicated probably, but it's doable. You can say it cancels it if you aren't already in stasis, but if you are, then and when you put it on, then it allows you to escape. Way faster to kill a researcher rather than try to escape his stasis. Yeah, it depends. It is depending on your build and purpose, and what other things are shooting you at the same time. All right, I'll think about that one later. We're gonna skip on to the next. It's in my notes now, so we're gonna do something with stasis cancel. I was gonna highlight that too. All right, we're gonna go transmission jammers here. There's a lot of these, but that's also because it's only 4. Makeshift doesn't count. Technically, we have 4 tiers of transmission jammers. Vectis on cue for complaining. All right, transmission jammer. I think 99% of the discussion's already been had, but equivalent work through walls. Yes, yes. 99% of the discussion has been had. There is a strong desire among players for transmission jammers to work how they used to work, which is through walls. And transmission jammers working through walls is basically massive cheese enabler. So we've required that it required that they be in view, and they're still very good, and people still use them. So clearly, I mean, that's fine. Earlier on, you could use these through walls, which allowed you to basically use penetrating weapons to kill entire squads without even getting attacked, because you just kill them one by one through the walls. Now there is a slight mitigating factor there, which is in penetrating weapons due to other cheese that they enabled. do eventually take down walls. But you could still get around that pretty easily by just using different walls because it takes a little time. So yeah, MTF Transjammer should work through walls. Well, I see no reasonable arguments why Transjammer should work through walls other than that you want cheese. There's no reasonable arguments. It just allows you to kill stuff without. That is what penetrating weapons are for, Bad Emperors, killing things through walls. But the thing is, if you can not only kill things through walls, but kill them and prevent them from telling anyone else that they're being killed at the same time, you can literally pick off the entire squad before any of them can get to you. Penetrating weapons now are you can do the penetration, but you're probably still going to get attacked eventually. I mean, obviously it depends on the walls and the layout and everything, but you're probably still going to get attacked because you can't jam them on the other side of a wall. Hey, Lord of all cheese. Yes, cheese. It's just logical. Well, yeah, we're not going to base this on logic. We're not basing it on logic or lore. We're basing it on gameplay and cheese. They are, like I said, these are good items, uh, even without LOS. I mean, even with requiring it, without the non-LOS requirement. Sorry. If I can't appeal to logic, what can I appeal to? Game design, MTF. Appeal to game design. At least add a lore reason they don't work through walls, then we'd be satisfied. You guys are really good at coming up with your own lore reasons for all kinds of things that aren't explained. Well, I explain a lot of stuff. There are a lot that I don't, but and the general believability of a lot of things in the world convince people to find believable solutions or reasons for other things. But I mean, yeah, I think it's perfectly fine. But what if I gave you $5 more a month? Can't bribe me. Transmission jammer is gonna stay the same. ECM suite. Unless people have something else you want to change. I mean, ranges. So the ranges are fine. Man, experimentals. Hell of a range, huh? Imagine if that worked through walls. The funny thing is that even if we allowed it to work through walls and nerfed the mega nerfed range because of it, it still would end up being really powerful and also suck because it'd be short range. But seriously, I like it the way it is now with the visual requirement. Um, yeah. So what do you guys think about these ranges? That's why I'm asking too. We could remove, if we want, we could remove a tier. I mean, all right. So let's ask then. Yeah. Does anyone actually use the lower tier ones? I love insane theories, Vectus. Yes. The lore reasons you guys come up with are really good. In fact, some of the lore reasons you guys come up with eventually become real lore. That's how good it is. um, I don't use transmissions until advanced. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's less likely to use transjammers that are range. I think 14 is a good enough range. It's a pretty decent range for a jammer. Um, I think it makes more sense to use them once they're around 14. I don't use them almost at all anymore, even though, well, technically they are still good at short range but it's harder to use them if successfully at such a short range, I think. But it's still possible. I mean, you get squads when they're coming around a corner and you take out the leader um, first, who can't report to the people who haven't come around the corner yet. Whereas normally in an open space, if you attack someone in a doorway or at a corner or something like that, then the others can react and reposition more quickly. But they can't do that. This slows the enemy reaction. Yeah, still on transmission jammers. Only 30 more minutes to go. Says Oyuka. Advanced transmission jammer required part. Your final offer. Anyway, so what do people think about these lower ranges? Does anyone use the regular transmission jammer? I'll just take some notes here. 8 is so bad. No, 12 is almost usable. Yeah, that's what I feel. That's my feelings as well. So but yeah, it's mainly that's what I was referring to a second ago, Marlon. The normal transmission. Yeah, I was talking about how it's hard to use and it can work for dealing with some for squads in doorways or exterms in doors in particular because you know the leader is always going to find you, but the one behind them will not necessarily. Also, it can work against squads around corners. It's just harder to use, so I think not many people tend to use it for that reason. It makes sense. Anyway, well. I'll probably end up buffing or changing up the numbers on these in general then. Yeah. I'm not going to change right now because I need to think about it a little bit more. But I'll change these numbers. Vector says, I think just keeping 12 as the low range jammer is good, although I'm surprised to hear people see much difference between 8 and 12. For me, any transmission jamming below range 16 is effectively equivalent. Well, any extra range can still be beneficial. Can be. 8 versus 12, I think 8 versus 12, yeah, it matters in some scenarios. I mean, 8 is pretty short, but 22 is noticeable because it expands the scope to include watchers. Yeah. All right. I've taken notes on that. I'm gonna change these. At least the lower tiers are gonna get modified a bit. Gonna highlight that too, and I'll relook at that. Obviously, the makeshift is a little different because it's a derelict one. Okay, done with that. ECMs. Oh wait, there's another question. Are there any particular reason the transjammers don't use the same range as the sensor arrays? I mean, yeah, just that they're different effects. So that's part of the reason. The other reason is probably these were not actually changed after sensors were changed the most recent time in beta 11. That would be another reason. But actually, I mean, they don't work like sensors anyway. They don't work through walls. They work through they work in concert with visual sensors. But expanding this all the way out to the max visual sensor range gets kind of crazy. It's already pretty crazy actually. 22 if you combine it with the spectral analyzer. Stepping into a room and jamming a sentry with 12, 14 range is a thing that happens fairly regularly. That's actually a good point. Is jamming a sentry. Using a short range jammer to jam a sentry is pretty effective because they have a large alert radius. They can call in bots from further out. So yeah, jamming a sentry makes sense. That's a good point. Can go experimental go to 24, which is real max vision. I mean, I'll consider it. One second. I don't really want too many larger values beyond 16 though, because 16 is your standard visual range. So we're only going to have probably one part. This in the end. So if we're going to talk about values, this here will match 16, because that's your standard visual range. This is going to be the only one that exceeds 16. And so I don't think it really needs to go to 24 unless we're like need to make room for other things in between, which we don't. But what's the new helical range? 22. The helical range? Helical range is 24, wasn't it? Helicals, their thing is range, so it was 26, I think, down to 24, right? Wait, where are my guns? 24, yeah. Helical new range is 24. It was 26, but again, we dropped that because all kinetic guns were dropped, and these were just dropped a little bit to drop them to always in view. You think it should match 24? Yeah, specifically because of helicals. When people were talking about this going above 22, I was thinking about helicals myself. So yeah, I disagree. Okay, moving on. ECM suites. These are very powerful. They are toggle heavy in general, especially the high levels there, but that's also incredibly powerful and the kind of thing that you don't really toggle a lot anyway. So the toggling in this case doesn't matter because it's a non-combat type item. Let's make these exponential stack. They're already incredibly good. Runia says never used them before. Yeah, there's a lot of parts you seem to have not used before, Runia. He seems to just justify use, but can be good. I think they are quite good. I actually one of the things is ECM suites were designed and then also redesigned back when back before we got the new spotting alert mechanics. You know, if an enemy loses sight of you, this is in beta 11. Beta, all the public players don't even have this yet. Is if the enemy loses sight of you, you actually gain alert. So technically, ECMs don't. They used to be more powerful than they are now. I mean, they are still powerful because you can lose your tail, um, but they don't save you from the alert. Okay, Oimika here is pointing out I stopped using these when the alert change was made. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And in fact, that could be a reason for reducing the upkeep on these. Not. What do you mean? That's why you don't use them, Runia? That's only been that alert change is like a very new thing. You've been playing Cogmind a lot longer than that. If you add alert feature to ECMs, I guarantee you all hell will break loose with GTA runs. What do you mean add an alert feature to ECMs? That's why I don't use them and I have a better reason not to. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, now there's less of a reason. That's why I'm saying they could technically even use uh, a little bit of buff in terms of the upkeep cost. We could reduce the upkeep on them now. Part of the reason their upkeep was so high is that they're they're very powerful originally, super powerful because they allow you to completely unescape or completely escape, unescape, completely escape situations, entire bots, which means all the attrition and alert associated with them. Um, if you can just, especially on faster bots, it just makes it incredibly easy to get away. But it doesn't even have to be flight though. Also, Phaethon, I think in beta 11, the flight energy requirements are lower, which makes it easier to do upkeep on stuff like these, even just the regular ones, which is pretty effective. Flight itself is good enough in a lot of cases, but this makes it so that you're gonna lose them pretty quick. This is the stuff that gets really hard to support, but at the same time, that's really fast. Experimental ECM will lose a swarmer in like 5 turns. Um, that's right, youngster. I don't use them because I kill all bots who spot me. There you go. Um, uh-huh. Oh, Vectus. Wow. Vectus says, uh-huh. Vectus says keep the upkeep high as kind of like it's one of their defining features, but give them extra abilities. Hmm. Well, I can't think of something else that would actually really work on here, and they already good. They're still a good part. Even the thing is, remember, even if you're gaining the alert, you're not getting the attrition from a fight if you successfully escape. Um, so they are still good. You're just it's gonna force you to reposition or take another route or do something like that. But if you're into using an ECM, which some people apparently use them, but I think with the alert change, maybe we'll need to wait longer to see. But anyway, I was the thought I was gonna finish there was adding another effect might make them just altogether too good, unless it's just some kind of interesting QOL effect. You know, like the triangulator actually does stuff like that. Like they could tell you how many enemies are still tracking you. Oh wow, that sounds really powerful. A triangulator plus ECM. Um, Wimika says add a warm up period. Oh. Yeah, I'm not worried about it for new players per se, although it does start at a low rating, which can be confusing in that. In fact, one rating, maybe there's an argument for changing the ratings too. But um, yeah, these are slightly opaque and not good for new players. But but yeah, you can tend once you know kind of how things work, which really learning how the AI works is a gradual process for new players anyway, in a lot of ways. Not just this. There's just tons of different ways you got to figure out, and it takes a long time, I think, to wrap your head around all the different AI behaviors. And just from watching other players interact with that and how they learn it over time, it definitely does take a while. So I don't think that's too big of an issue. But once you do know those things, yeah, the ECM, it is pretty obvious if you have sensors anyway. If you have any of that info, is when an enemy is giving up. But yeah, we have a new running joke, Chris, on which the warm up period. um, but yeah, I don't like that aspect as much either. It's always nice when these things are extra obvious, but it's not, and there's not an easy way to make it extra obvious through the mechanics or through the well, actually, one way to make it easier, it's true. Thinking back to what Luigi said some days ago when we were talking about the triangulator, he said he started understanding about enemy tracking when he was using a triangulator, which allows you to know how many enemies are currently tracking you. Which is why I just thought of I was thinking of that'd be a very interesting thing to attach to the ECM suite. It seems like it might be too powerful, but maybe it's not actually in that case. What if the ECM does the same effect as a triangulator? But I don't know. I think from a logical standpoint, it's not really supposed to also do that. You know, if you want, you can have a triangulator as your separate part to do that. I don't really want to have other parts that do the same effect. But if we didn't have a triangulator, I think that would be a neat effect to have on the ECM suite. Okay, Amika says, what if an ECM can report to you when a bot has forgotten about you? I mean, that's the same thing as the triangulator effect right there. It's a suite, so it should have a suite of effects. Well, no, it's a suite of instruments that has one final effect. Yeah, I know what you mean, Bad Emperor, about the last known position versus your current location, right? It's hard to do that wording there without literally writing a paragraph about how the whole AI works in the effect description, which wouldn't fit. Also, yeah, in general, AI is not described in Cogmind. It's something that you learn over time through interacting with the mechanics and parts. Final offer: ECM should permanently track all bots that have seen and forgotten about you within a range of 24. It's not sensors. Encourages being spotted and running away for long-term benefits. Hmm. That's an interesting idea. Yeah. I mean, the whole point of ECM is that yeah, you know, it's electronic countermeasures, so it's more of a defensive thing, not a proactive thing. That's an interesting idea, Runia. If it has a bot has been tracking your last location, you have sensors showing it. You have a ghosty version of Cogmind of your last known location. Yeah, That starts to get kind of complicated. But anyway, well, all right. I don't hear any strong arguments for doing anything with this. We're not really looking down at what we've got left here. So anyway, no plans for that. Maybe it could have some impact other than tracking theme stuff. No extremes will happen while ECM is on or something weird like that. Huh. That's an interesting idea. Obviously, that in particular sounds too powerful, but yeah. What if like exterminations and assaults could no longer they could no longer track your exact location. They can only track your they can only figure your general area. So you have programmers that instead of going straight to you, they come to nearby rooms and just start looking around. And that would probably, I don't know, that could be useful, but probably just more annoying because you'll need to deal with them eventually. But that is an interesting idea. All right, maneuvering thrusters, my old friend. I would absolutely use ECMs if that were the effect. Yeah. Um, um, Might I begin with perhaps who was up with the naming scheme change? I've always meant to ask this. Oh, did you miss the first stream, Vectus? I talked about this a lot in the early on, or it wasn't the first stream, the last utility stream, or the last couple dev streams. I've talked about that already. I'm not going to go over it again today, but the idea is it's a flavor versus function. If you remember, you maybe weren't around when I discussed flavor versus function. Um, but yeah, I am doing a review at the end of all of this of what I want to do with the naming schemes of certain items. You weren't there? Oh, that's too bad. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to revisit naming of a lot of items, in particular utilities, when I'm done with all the stats. Because right now I care about stats and effects and stuff, and we're going to do naming later. But at the very end, once the stats are set, and then because I don't even know, some of these utilities and items are just disappearing or becoming a rather different effect or whatever, that kind of thing. So it doesn't make sense to work on the naming just yet. I'm going to do it when the fundamental stats are done. But yeah, covered that before. So anyway, just accept it here. Maneuvering thrusters, and we've got reaction control systems. And what do people say about these? RCS good. All right, so yeah, I mean these are basically just. I mean they're. I think these are probably fine. They're all good. Um, they're not necessarily good for always good for legs. Like this 3% on legs is kind of minimal, but once you get to the half bonus for these are once you get to the half bonus for legs on some of the better ones, it starts to become somewhat meaningful. But it was kind of just actually part of that. Yeah, I mean that was part of that was to try and add some extra like interesting upgrades to that affect leg builds back before legs start getting some of their own interesting stuff, which now have like a better dodge on their own, which is interesting because you have the better dodge and you can combine it with these. But yeah, based here. Does even flight not use this? I mean, it only has one energy upkeep. I guess because it's rating 3, by then you don't have enough slots for all this stuff still, compared to other things you want. The mobility theme should work at 100% of legs. Induce complexity here is weird. Uh, Part of the problem is with that is logically speaking. Remember, these are actually relatable to the phase shifters. The idea behind phase shifters, these reduce enemy targeting. These increase dodge. That's the exact same thing. So, um, dodging and reducing enemy targeting, they're just different concepts for the same thing. So, um, legs technically have access to that through this other means. Now, if they can also use the part of the that's actually partially a logical thing because these were originally meant for uh, for non-ground based movement. but I decided to give legs a little buff. So if you really think legs should, I mean, if you want, I mean, also, I mean, I think legs kind of make sense as a mobile thing, right? But they're not quite as mobile as flight. So logically speaking, you know, half the bonus is kind of is good there. Having the full bonus seems kind of weird. I mean, the idea is if you're on treads and wheels, you're not gonna have the same mobility. Obviously, flight and hover, you can move around with a lot more degrees of freedom, so you're getting an extra bonus. Legs, you are more mobile than treads and wheels because you can go in even more directions more quickly. But it's still not quite the same thing as flight and hover. So I don't see really why. I don't see why they should be equal. Um, but getting back to the base thing, is regular maneuvering thrusters useful? I mean, because at 6% is never worth a slot over one of the other 15 flight utilities flight wants to equip. That's what I think is that it's basically probably just the percent's too low. Um, all right. Hmm. We'll probably end up having to remove a tier then, is my guess. Yeah, I think phase shifter's fine too. They've actually been redone before at some point during beta. Phase shifters were reworked. Actually, cutters use the base tier. I take it back. Don't remove it. Yeah, if you remove maneuvering thrusters, actually other bots. That's one of the things that you always got to consider. That's what I've been doing, as you noticed, for some of these other parts, is checking out which bots use it. Actually, we can use Cogminder for this. Um, Maneuvering thrusters. Um, these are the bots that use maneuvering. Basic. Oh wait, actually, don't we have to actually check? We can check what kind. Base, and these are improved. So the slicers are the ones that use base tier. And these Master Thieves also have base. Target drone. That's in here. Cogminder has the target drone. A Master Thief buff. And these guys, Z Lights also have. Oh, that's a regular phase shifter. They have improved maneuvering thrusters. Hmm. Target drone is very important. All right, so yeah, so part of the thing is that yeah, these can be used by other bots, but we can give them a little buff, right? No, I don't know. We'll see. Bot designs are actually kind of secondary when it comes to the items like this. These could easily, I could readjust those. Something for the demos to shoot that's not me. That is true. They have an important job. Even though you're a much juicier target when you find them. Anyway, uh, I wonder how many people use these on legs. I'm pretty sure I've used these on legs before, non-ironically. The reaction control systems, not the lower tier ones. A little low. This one is definitely on the too low side. But oh yeah, Vectis 2 says I use RCS on legs. Yeah, I think RCS is pretty decent and even on legs. Only RCS is worth a while on legs. Yeah. Mm, integrity is too low on low tiers. Uh, mm, Well, oh, this is a case of, you know, the coverage and integrity on these is a case of the benefit. It's based on the fact that I don't want people using these for too long because having good dodge effects for a longer period is too powerful. So I think what we're going to do here is probably just remove the lowest tier, and then I'll probably change I don't know, change the naming scheme. I would have to after that, but I'm kind of loath to do that. I actually like having these items. I think they both sound cool and but I'll figure out what to do. But I guess we could probably remove this. Then it just means that, yeah, the bots that are using this now are going to get a better one probably. Only a minor upgrade. The mechanical difference between the RCS. Oh, RCS should work on legs, maneuvering thrusters don't. Yeah, it does make sense that thrusters make sense on flight. The problem with doing that is it dilutes the pool, which Vectis loves, right? Why am I consolidating tiers on this item? I'm consolidating tiers because no one wants this one, but the base tier trap scanner is good. The people are saying this one doesn't make a difference, or does it? What, you think I should keep this one? What do people think? I don't know. I mean, if MTF saying these are never used items, why is an improved maneuvering thruster? You never use phase shifters either. I mean, it gives you 10% dodge, um, and it has lower chance to die than the phase shifters. So I guess you don't use those, huh? Removing it leans imprint. Meme comment detected. 10% dodge is whatever in F. I guess, yeah. I mean, you could say that. Depends on what you emphasize. It's just not near the first slot this early on. Yeah, it's the early slots are count meaning or have a different meaningfulness. Catching up on chat. Okay. All right. I'll make a note and look at to reconsider this later. I don't know if I'm going to be able to remove this though. It might depend on some other things. Okay. We'll see. Otherwise, the numbers are already, these are all pretty much fine numbers. Cloaking device. Cloaking device, I actually was going to buff a couple weeks ago, and I started working on the buff, and then I unbuffed it. There's a lot of cloaking devices, huh? But we won't talk about that. I think they're pretty decent. I think they're fine, actually. All these. Rating 3 cloaking device, good. What do you mean rating 3 cloaking device? What are you talking about? Rating. Oh, you're saying do you mean you want me to lower the rating of the lowest of the intro cloaking device because you get them a bit late? Yeah, I know. That was the intention with these. I remember. I didn't want to introduce them too early. I imagine people will use them. They are pretty good. I mean, even if you find it by 5, but yeah, I think with energy nerfs, we should lower energy costs on these. No. No. These aren't necessarily something you want to be using 100% of the time anyway. Um, they are toggleable parts, but they're not something you're going to be toggling all the time. But I like them where they are. They're kind of something that, yeah, they do drain a lot of energy, especially the good ones. I mean, the lower ones you could just leave them on, but the really good ones, they're all, reducing enemy sight range by that much is quite a lot and pretty effective. That's more than most flight engines can power. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. And you're right. I guess you'll just have to use an engine and a half. It's a good part. No need to make it OP or something that everyone always has to have, right? Even two engines. Okay, two engines then. Um, at least they don't weigh anything. But I mean, I don't. I think these are good. In my experience, they're good. But I also don't play the flight builds. But flight doesn't really need. If flight thinks these are tough to use, that's probably okay. 2.5 inches. Brings up my flight engine complaints. Yeah. In the end, though, remember flight isn't really meant to be used the same way anymore that people were using it earlier. People are gonna try anyway, but if you're a flight build, you shouldn't be getting into fights, and you should be just having all you got your info war and hackware, and that should be good enough. A cloaking device is just one option. From my experience, they're good, but I don't really play them. I do that Bad Emperor. That is not what I said. They're good in my experience on the builds that I use them on. I don't really play flight though, so I can't comment as much on their usage on flight. But I like them on non-flight builds. Cloaking devices are nice. Oh, this is a stable flight stealth item, which I was hoping to get buffs. Buffs? No, I don't see this being buffed. I mean, we'll see later, perhaps. I can understand. I get the idea about energy changes and wanting to lower this. That it could. I can see that theoretically being a possibility. I think right now there's maybe aren't enough people doing runs. I mean, MTF, you haven't been sharing any runs with us either. I need to see more runs, um, and people using cloaking devices or choosing not to use cloaking devices. And we're gonna need more players, I think, before I'd be reconsider that. Yeah, I know you've done. I've been doing a few runs lately, and no pressure, no pressure. Um, Cloaking has always been underrated. It's very good as Vectus. Yeah, partial spot detection feels niche and weird. It only feels niche and weird because it's not working, Vectus. They don't even exist. Did you know that? They've been broken like for ages. I haven't fixed them yet. Um, Partial spotting has been broken for a long time. I don't know when it broke, but Emika pointed out it broke at some point, and I got to fix it. I haven't done it yet. It's on my list to do soon. But yeah, it's like people will notice it once it's not broken anymore. Yeah, I noticed. I didn't really notice it explicitly either but yeah, I once Oimika mentioned it. I was like, yeah, that is really weird. You just don't see it happen ever anymore at all. I'm terrified of heavies when partial spots are back. I think they actually won't be much of a problem with heavies because heavies won't chase you very far. They don't. They won't leave their area, so I don't think it's going to affect heavies. The main thing with partial spots is it affects sentries. The main big change is sentries, and it has some effects, tactical effects in other areas, of course, off and on. But the big one is sentries because they'll follow you forever, which puts them in a new location. In a lot of new locations with potentials to spot you again, or notify different enemies, or just offer you a different way to access whatever they were blocking by circling around. But anyway. Shadow's Cloak actually gettable? No. I mean, you get lucky. It's unique. 300 coverage and 100 integrity? No. Look at that thing. It has a ridiculous effect and 20 upkeep. Hell yeah. Make that hard to get and use. It's got a reduction of 6. Both of these are OP. Like unique items, 5 and 6. So yeah, no, they're not something you need to be able to get. Shadow parts are unobtainable. It's just because no one goes there. I have to get successfully killed. Yeah, they're hard to get. You get them one day. Partial spots are useful for living a century away from machines or exits. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's so. Once they're fixed, people will be able to do that again. It used to work. Something changed in the AI, and I guess it didn't take into account partial spotting as a possibility. So I'm going to have to look at it again and see why they stopped doing that. But yes, that is definitely in my notes. Things to do. All right, we're done with cloaking devices. I don't. I'm kind of tempted to maybe lower the energy cost, but the thing is, I don't know by how much. I can see the only reason I would be willing to lower this is due to the um, flight changes. And wait, no, the flight changes were good though. I mean, the engine changes, yeah, but no. I mean, technically, flight and hover became a little less energy intensive, but at the same time, the engines were a little nerfed, and your late game buffs, some of those were removed. But no, I don't see how much these would be lowered by and still have the same difficult to use sort of impact that I wanted them to have. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. What is actually let's look that up. While we're talking about it, Shadow's Cloak. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll look at that. I'll revisit this. Well, no, wait a minute. Maybe not. No, wait a minute. Let me think about this for a second. That's also his armor. That's the reason it has 300 coverage. Wait, what page am I supposed to be on this one? Um, doesn't have a lot, but 33% buff the integrity. Um, mm, yeah, I could do that. All right, I'll buff the integrity. Yeah, we can definitely buff the integrity on that. Definitely. I don't know how much to buff it by yet, but we'll buff it. All right, I'm gonna buff the integrity. I don't know the number yet, but it's gonna be buffed. It's gonna be something much bigger. I mean, I'm thinking like in the multiple hundreds, like yeah, like I don't know, 400 or 500 at least. Something big. I can see that working. Part of the reason is, well, it is really good, but at the same time, it's heavy and it's got a lot of coverage. And yeah, if you look at the one of the things maybe I didn't realize at the time that he's got 33% coverage on it, based on the rest of his other stats, including his low core exposure. Um, yeah, because when I design bots, I don't see the coverage of individual items because usually it doesn't have such an impact. But on this particular unique, with his one of his two unique parts, it does actually matter a lot. So, um, can he even exist anymore? He can definitely exist. Like I said, I have a thing that can tell me whether bots are have problems with their design. But because remember, bots can have some amount of innate energy generation too, which allows them to generally not, they won't require more than they can produce. I need to move this window. Looking up some numbers here. Yeah, yeah. Shadow in particular has a higher amount. so he gets to cheat. Not really cheating, but it's just like Cogmind. Cogmind gets innate generation and innate heat dissipation too. But the cheating effect, yes. The balance effect to make things even work. But yeah, it's just not really cheating though. Technically, robot chassis do have their own abilities to dissipate some amount of heat and generate some amount of energy, not the power source itself. Um, but yeah, Shadow has a lot of has actually a fairly large amount of energy generation. Most bots don't. Most bots keep it pretty balanced. And in the end, they are balanced usually balanced along an edge, such that if you do take out their power source, they can no longer power all of their things. So a lot of bots are like that anyway. Or same thing with heat dissipation and whatnot. You can start to overheat them if you take out their cooling, even if they do have innate cooling. Um, but anyway, yeah, for him in particular, he does have some expensive ones, so it's necessary to allow him to run without giving him like a ton of engines. Like it's possible to make the bot design work, but then it's weird because you get this bot who's just got a ton of extra parts, a bunch of extra engines, and probably the biggest problem there in terms of design is then their propulsion gets weird. Like the tiles and the whole idea of these legged bots are generally legged bots run on two legs. Well, that means two legs have to be able to support all their other parts. And so, what two legs are those going to be? And with uniques sometimes you give a lot of extra stuff, so they're going to need some extra numbers coming from their frame, you could call it. um, right, funny vectors. Okay. Yeah, anyway, so I will look at this. Actually, I don't need to. Yeah, highlight that, undo that. All right, we'll look at that whole item later, specifically looking at its integrity. um Are there bots out there with more core mass support than Cogmind? Yeah, sure. Not many though, actually. Mass support. In fact, I didn't even add the ability for bots to have core mass support at all until beta 11. And the only reason I did it is because golems couldn't exist anymore unless I totally imbalanced their ASB frame. So that actually didn't even exist a long time ago. Uh, so support was not an issue. Support rules were, but bots were always basing their support on the rules of their parts directly. But yeah, golems had to start cheating. um, don't the exiles also overburden now? Well, some bots always did on purpose. Some bots are overweight. They always have been, and I don't know if I think there might have been one change or two. There have been some bots that have changed back and forth over time as parts have been modified, and mainly just parts modified. Yeah, and that's happened quite a few times with a number of different bots, especially things like crushers. Crusher speeds have been changing a lot too because of that. But shout out to the Z Courier. Yes, the Z Courier is definitely super slow. Z Courier is for a different reason though, specifically because the change in the humpback. Um, 1 second here. I'm gonna do something real quick. Oops, forgot to put up my. I got an email. No, I didn't get an email. I forgot to put this up. I'll put it up there now. Okay, I'm back again. There we go. That was kind of unexpected. music stream. Yeah. Um, I got hit by an intercept. Yeah, it's another thing too. I didn't actually get any music ready for like dev streams, which I'm not used to doing these, so I don't have a lot of things set up that I could otherwise have set up. Got an email. No, you've got mail. All right, back to what we were doing here. Core shielding, MTF's favorite part. So we don't need to buff that. Play heavy metal for dev streams. I would love to. I would love to play not heavy metal in particular, but I'd love to play some high energy, crazy stuff. But it's the problem with this. The problem with a lot of music I would like to play is that it's very not suitable for streaming because you wouldn't be able to both enjoy the music and the stream. Uh, VOD muted instantly. Yeah, that's the problem. As Awimika points out too, is the VOD will just get muted if I play any music that I want to play. Probably. Um, I mean, you can play esoteric rare stuff. It's hard. It's one only time I've ever used music. That's is was back with streaming Prospector and Prospector. Even that, I found a bunch of stuff that's like free music released by the authors, the composers themselves, blah blah blah, and even some of that got muted by YouTube later on. I'm like, what the hell, people? So dumb. Anyway, dubstep music. Yep. Core shielding is just weird. I will never attach. I'm not sure why it's available to players. Makes sense for bots though. It does make sense for bots. It is also, I don't know why you. It makes a lot of sense for bots for one thing. Also, it's definitely good, Vectus. I don't know why you don't attach it, unless you're just speaking nonsense. But yeah, MTF is giving a list of what core shielding is good for. We've actually already rebalanced all these, so I think we're probably going to end up skipping by them anyway. All the shieldings were rebalanced for beta 11 already. This was done as part of the very first review of some of the utilities. Good for start of game, end of game. Yeah, yeah. Core shielding can be good at the beginning and the end. You don't necessarily need it as much in the middle unless you're doing something weird. It's the kind of thing that, if your core is getting lower, it's useful. And sometimes your core gets lower. It's not the kind of thing you'll put on early, usually, unless you do have some kind of long term plan. But anyway. Why does the core shielding progress 1-2-1? It's because this is experimental core shielding. A lot of experimental parts have some other advantages over previous parts, including mass. In fact, a lot of experimental parts you'll find they're actually lower mass than others of the same type. Anyway, rebalance shielding to gain. I'll gain plus 25 integrity. What? Oh, you're talking about buffing their integrity numbers here? So yeah, that was the big change to shielding for beta 11. Experimental weapon shielding too. Oh, we got even more shieldings down here. Let's drop that just a bit. Here's the shieldings and their integrities. These were nerfed from higher values earlier. They were nerfed because they were very good. And GJ is the main culprit there. Where is he today? Actually, he could have perhaps had some good input on some of these other things, but especially shielding, since he was one of the proponents of dropping it in the first place. He's avoiding responsibility. Is that where he disappeared? I feel over nerfed. I don't know. I I don't use all of these. I use some of them sometimes, and I don't know. I've felt so far that I mean they're good at what they do, and yeah, but they also don't last. Um, More integrity but lower percent would be fine with me. That's an interesting idea, but if it balances out in the end, that's worse for you, don't you think? Because it just means you're going to have the part around for longer. Why not just lose the part? I think shielding is best doing when it's doing its job and it gets blown off. You know, it means you don't have to carry as many backups, which is nice. Um, it does. It also means your parts are going to take more damage. I see. Okay, so it's not just the damage thing. Part of it that what you're looking at here is anti-crit. Right. Okay. That's the thing. Yeah, Oimika gets right to the heart of the problem there. All right, you're looking for anti-crit. GJ has been playing Ground Gives Way nonstop this week for some reason. Yeah, he's going on a win streak and Ground Gives Way. So, I mean, the new version came out. As soon as the new version landed, GJ's been all over Ground Gives Way and the new stuff. And it's gotten slightly easier. So he's trying to break his win streak. He's now on win number 9. or he finished win number 9. He's going on to 10, I guess. We'll see if he breaks his streak record. But I see. So you're thinking about more anti-crit protection. Okay. Well, so these numbers, the integrity numbers. Oh, Vectis now reports that Win 10 is done. Okay. The last I read, Win 9 was only the last one completed. I didn't know he finished 10 already now. Apparently, I guess, yes, the new version of TGW is officially easier. Easier, but still not easy. Anyway, so these numbers were based on the existing percents. So I mean, if we didn't change these numbers and change the percents, it's kind of I don't know. I mean, we could change it to a different progression. Right now, it'll end up being a different progression. Right now, you have 33, 66, 90. It become 25, 50, 25, 50, 75, or something like that. Which would you rather protect? How much do you really want to protect your utilities? Right now you get 90. Sorry, youngster, we're not going 99. 99 is also pointless. You might as well be 100, like the weapon casing. But 90% protection is actually harmful. To be honest, harmful to what? 90% protection on a utility can be the difference between your processors getting shut off. I guess it doesn't matter necessarily. It depends on how good of a processor it is, but maybe plus 50 integrity. We already nerfed the integrity. Intent is not to raise integrity again. What we could do is more even them out a little bit. Well, no. 33, 50. Much rather have shielding last longer because you guys are thinking about anti-crit benefits. I see what you mean. So you're really focusing on the anti-crit aspect of shieldings. Okay, I can see that. If that's the case, we could lower it. I don't know what you mean by even aside from anti-crit though, because if the values are kept the same, it shouldn't have an effect aside from anti-crit. Let me think about this for just a second here. Another benefit of high percent shielding is it allows you to consolidate your repair effort into a single part for a whole category of utilities. That's true. If you are doing repairs, that does help that way. Reduce. All right. Well, without thinking about integrity, what percent values are you thinking about? Because we end up having the same, again, the same progression on all of these. Core is going to be a little different. Can ignore core, I think, for these purposes. Weapon casings would still be a 100. That would be unchanged. Weapon casings won't change. That's like a special quality for weapons, Zionite weapons, because they have almost no integrity. They're using casing to protect them. Yeah, 25, 50, 75 plus 50 integrity might be okay. Vectis 30, 60, 90. Wait, what? 30, 60, 90? What? That's like almost no different from what we've got now, Vectis. Oh, it's because Vectis, are you a proponent of keeping high percents? Because if you are, there's no reason to really change the numbers we have now. 30, 60, 90 is like the same thing. Yeah, that's the numbers I was mentioning earlier. 25, 50. Well, the main reason I did 90 instead of 90, the main reason the original percents are what they are is because these are technically considered pretty round percents. You got 1/3, 2/3, and this one was actually, was this ever? I don't think this wasn't ever 99, but he didn't want it to be 100, so I ended up dropping the top one to 90, so it's a little different. But yeah, sure, a smoother progression, right? But oh, you see, you're a proponent of higher percents. I think the percents wouldn't affect it that much. Everything I think anti-crit. I think the shieldings are maybe not necessary to change. I don't see if there were another way to get anti-crit, I think the shieldings would be unnecessary to change. Anti-crit as what? I don't think it would really work, probably. Another utility you attach? Would you? I mean, where are you going to have room for that? Also, in that case, it would probably, you're assuming it's going to block crits against all your parts instead of specific types. Whereas specific types, you then have to pick and choose what you're going to protect. And with you see people using almost all these kinds, which I think is pretty cool. You have weapon shielding, utility shielding, propulsion shielding. All of these are useful for different builds and are valuable. Power shielding, not so much, but we need it for completion's sake. And I think some other bots use it for the heck of it. No people use power shielding though. Yes, but it's there for completion and also for other bots. Actually, what bots do use power shielding? Do bots use power shielding? No. There's bots that use power, but not power shielding. Not even the other bots use power shielding. Okay, well, it's there in case we want other bots to use power shielding. Not even imps. uh, they're still thinking of ways to use it. Put them on heavies. Oh, there's an idea. That would make people happy. Your favorite argument betrayed you. I don't know. Rooney has got a good idea. We can put them on heavies. Oh, because this don't you dare. That sounds so mean. Well, for now we're leaving them with that weakness, and I think it's okay. But it does sound like a compelling use for power shielding. That's what I normally do when I'm designing the bots. Is if they have a part that is very valuable to their build, that without it they're gonna really get messed up, then I give them shielding for that. So that's why you see a fair number. All these types of shielding are used. You see prop shielding on a number of flying type bots. You see weapon shielding on bots that have fewer weapons and valuable weapons like the Cyclops. Anything that has like a could be easily rendered harmless if it lost its weaponry, or it only has one weapon basically, which is relying heavily on. And they get weapon shielding and utility shielding. A number of random bots probably use that. But actually, I'm not even sure what bots use utility shielding because it's not something I normally build into them. I'm curious about that. There's a few. B99 got utility shielding, but yeah, not a lot of them use utility shielding. But for them, it makes a little less sense. But it's obviously a high on the players' list of useful shieldings. Power shielding equals sterilization build item. Also make them specifically weak to claymores. Heavies. Hey, you remember that Bad Emperor? Yeah, I did talk about that at one point. When did I talk about that? I did. Slottable weapon casing items. Yeah. This was back when I was thinking of ways to improve usage of weapon slots, the utility of weapon slots by adding. Did I talk about all this in detail? Because the full idea was to add modules. I think I might have only talked about casing, but the full idea was to add modules which can be slotted into weapon slots and directly modify weapons. And that would include a type of casing that you could use to protect a specific weapon using a weapon slot. I like the idea too a lot, Bad Emperor. I think it's a really cool idea as well. And I have a ton of notes on that because I was thinking of seriously adding that system, but it just hasn't really gone anywhere. It's just one of those things that it'd be a big change with and a big architectural thing too. And but yeah, all kinds of stuff. Exactly, chargers, and yeah, I think I might have talked about chargers in that context as well. Yeah, just other different abilities that you could put on that could buff a single weapon in weapon slots. Um. Anyway, but yeah, that's I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it's definitely been on my list, and I keep. It's not even super far down on the list. It keeps getting brought back up. I did actually go back to it for beta 11 too, specifically because we're doing all this reworking, but I ended up dropping the idea again. Are you trying to get me to play that clip on stream, Vectus? MTF what he sounds like when he's sad. There's a lot of really good clips from other Cogmind streamers. Um, anyway, so yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the idea of lowering the percent, but increasing the integrity a bit so that it'll last longer, but your weapons, your stuff will take a little more damage in the meantime. But that means you get the crit effect. I don't really see potential in the near term for adding a crit blocking utility. Um, Also, I'd have to think of the technological concept behind such a thing. But it sounds like it would be quite good. But maybe, I don't know. That could work, maybe. You know what? I'm going to put that note down right next to this. Maybe it'll get added in. I still didn't add the pen emote either. I'd have to find I'd have to find some kind of tech that would make at least some sci-fi sense in that regard. But it might be doable. Can we have a processor housing? You have utility shielding for that. That's utility shielding is processor housing. Add crit mitigation to hard light generator, then people will finally start using hard light. That's an idea. Anyway, I'll write down. Even though Vectus is half joking, probably. Uh, it's always a good idea. We haven't gotten there yet. It's on the list too. That's kind of a weird tech for that, but I was thinking something more internal. But anyway, hard light blocking crits would legit make it compete with Aegis. Oh, that's the thing. Oh, that would be the thing about using hard light is you can't stack it with shields, which actually is kind of funny. Like if it was a separate utility that worked internally, you'd be allowed to stack it with shields. But if it was hard light, you'd have to use hard light to get that effect. Fact is not joking. The reason I think adding crit mitigation to hard light generator is interesting is because it now starts to compete with force fields, which are presently dominant in the in game. Yeah, that's true. I like where this is going. Yeah, that is an interesting idea. Heart utility shielding takes damage when armor takes damage, right? No, it does not. It says right here in the description. I asked you to make it bigger again. Does not protect armor, but negates extra effects of critical strikes against utilities. I would love for hard light to be usable. Me too. We haven't gotten there yet. It's down on the list. We're still, man, I can't believe it. I was expecting maybe to finish the list today too. Sheesh. But no, there were some longer discussions in here. I'm gonna run out of time soon. Okay. Okay. Oh, but then give it a warm up period, half stack, and core analyzer. That's it. We'll add warm up for hard light. I got excited when I saw hard and light armor plating just now. Uh-huh. All right, so here's all the armors. Um hmm. Anyway, there's no changes planned for armors. These are hey Jack 9, welcome to the stream. You've missed quite a stream. How are we generating light harder? Yes, all armor seems fine. Armor has been heavily balanced. If any of these numbers was changed, it would cause a mega cascade across all kinds of other things. So these numbers have been rebalanced several times. In fact, you didn't beta 10 again or something like that. Oh, that's right. Yeah, these numbers have been rebalanced several times throughout beta. And I think they're in a good place. Armor seems fine. I don't plan on updating any of that stuff. Special armors, we can start getting into weird possibilities. But like even these other ones, these are all heavily balanced against each other and all other parts. So they can't really touch this without. I mean, obviously, special armors are different. These guys were also just recently changed. These are uniques. The unique stuff we can modify, but I mean the common armors are all done. Give shell 2200. Give shell more coverage, so it can die faster. We're not down to shell yet. We're getting there. So here's damper. Damper was nerfed to 4 slots, which gives it even more coverage, but also, you get drawn down faster. The main problem is just damper is harder to carry around now and just use as well. You can't use it as effectively as early, but it's great armor. Apparently people are still using it or want to use it. So for its what it is. Damper was 3 slots, it's now 4. Bad damper says I don't use damper, I just carry it. Anyway, yeah, it's got its niche considering it's got this ridiculously high resistance against damage that some of the more dangerous or recurring enemies can cause. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be fine here. There's not a whole lot of data, I think. I haven't seen a lot of people using it lately, just a lot of people talking about it. But I know people are claiming it's all fine. So make botnet good. Botnet. All right, botnet is good. There, we're done. Botnet's good. Shade. Now, what about shade? Yeah, shade armor and carapace. These are all intentionally Um, relatively heavy, low, higher coverage for lower integrity than you find in other armors, but that's also because they give you resistance for all of your parts, which is pretty amazing. These don't work well alone, but they work really well combined with other armors. Shade armor needs nerfs. Wait, did MTF just say something needs nerfs? MTF, are you being serious? Or are you joking? We should just nerf MTF before, nerf Shade before MTF says otherwise. Old MTF is dead. New one wants vengeance. He's spiteful. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is this like an anti GJ thing or? Anyway, yeah. The idea behind Shade is that if you use it on its own, it's going to die quickly. But with other parts, it's really effective because of all the resistance you get. So if you can stack a bunch of armor on top of your Shade there. Shade is busted. It's why wind imprint is a thing. Okay, You think that's the only? I mean, yeah, it does. The fact that you can get Shade from from imprinting and joining Zion, you can get it as a regular sources means it's pretty good. MTK is okay because he can't hack open imprint seals anymore because he doesn't use botnet. He's jealous of everybody who can. MTF fails combat imprint once, tries to ruin the fun for everybody else. All right, so this is a really effective armor. I mean, full resistance against all the common damage types. Not full. I mean, by full, I mean full resistance across the spectrum, full spectrum resistance. Um, for that of those amounts is pretty awesome. I mean, especially Shade at 30. 30, 200, 205. I mean, yeah, it does make imprint strong in the end game, but imprint was technically supposed to be strong in the end game because you have to deal with imprint before you get to the end game. Can't you not use botnet as imprint? Give Shade more coverage. I failed it 3 times. Okay. Give Shade more coverage. Yeah, it's based on these are you can see the stats. The stats they're based on. This one's based on a medium type armor. Also, it's rating 10. It really lives up to its rating. Very few items in Cogmind are rating 10. Rating 10 is reserved for very special, unique items. Obviously, there's 8 in here. It's still pretty good, but at 30% and the extra stats here is nice. It's got the dropped coverage with extra integrity. It makes your Shade armor last a lot longer than a Carapace. Carapace can tend to get shut off a lot faster. Clearly, with these stats, it's the Shade which is good. So it's rating 10, but I mean, so it lives up to its rating in that regard. There, that's it. OMK says CMTF rating 10 is supposed to be OP, just like multi-rails. It is supposed to be OP. It's true. If we nerf Shade Armor, we need to nerf improved pod cannon too. Multi-rails and Shade disgusting. Anyway, I don't think I wasn't planning on doing anything with this, and for some reason MTF, the anti-nerf, the biggest anti-nerf player I know, wants to nerf it. He can hash that out with everyone else and GJ maybe. Enables resistance to 15. All right, yeah, ASB alloy is a little bit different story. Shade armor living to its name, receiving a lot of shade. MTF is a lot of shade. No, I want to see it go down. Oh, MTF, giving me reasons to not nerf it. All right, we've got ablative armor, which is new, and people seem to like it. It's so we don't. Not many people have used it yet overall, though. So I mean, we don't have a whole lot of experience. Collective play experience. It's pretty good. It's a kind of armor that you can. It's a big old heat sink. It just gets. This idea came from Discord. Um, no, someone didn't say a blade of armor directly, but they said something about something that triggered my mind that caused me to think up a blade of armor. So that became a thing, which was kind of perfect timing because I needed to. It made sense to add it for the sappers with their super high heat thermoblasters and thermal explosions and stuff. They're very heavy on the heat, so I thought it'd be really cool to have a special kind of armor for them that can get rid of that heat. But it's only it's only gonna last so long. But anyway, yeah, it's armor plus disposable heatsink, and it's a real thing too. So I thought it was a cool concept to cool sci-fi tech to stick in the game. Not even sci-fi really. Makeshift blade is better than ACA. Yeah, here's the active cooling armor. The thing about active cooling armor is it's not gonna die quickly. It also, yeah, you can compare it. Also, look at the size on that. 3 slots for 900 coverage, but that's a heck of a lot of integrity. Look at that integrity. This thing has the same size as Shell, but has twice as much integrity despite having the same coverage. That's crazy. And it dissipates 60 heat. 2500 isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. It's a lot if you get it in the early and mid game, which is where you can get it. You can literally get it way before Shell, because it's a special drop, right? Anyway, yeah. So active cooling armor. I mean, yeah. Also, there's it's the question with these two things. It's also a question of whether you can get them. Like a blade of armor, you're gonna only get it in certain places in the game, and same with active cooling armor, which is technically even more rare, but it's a special item. Um, phase armor, phase armor. All right, so now we're not done there yet. Powered armor, powered armors. I mean, I don't. They've these are fine. All the armor stuff is really fine. Unless anybody has a comment about any of these armors, I mean, I'm pretty much skipping past armor stuff because they've all been balanced multiple times. Experimental powered armor is still the best in the game. Experimental powered armor is good. It's got its own great force field on itself next to shade. Yeah, combine experimental powered armor and shade. The cool thing about the experimental armors is they have amazing, or the experimental powered armors is powered armors have amazing coverage for their slot size. It's 400 per slot, which is really cool for protection. No, Imka says in bad energy B11, you may find it's not your favorite anymore. Depends, yeah, depends on what you're running, what type of build you're running, but it does cost that energy. It's 1-to-1 though, which is a great ratio for blocking damage. It blocks a ton of damage, but 1-to-1 ratio. 1-to-1 is huge. I mean, it's good. Yeah. I hope your gross was not connected to the 1-to-1 ratio, but yeah, you probably mean 1-to-1 is huge isn't good. That's I was making sure. You were saying gross to Amika's comment. Yeah, the 1-to-1 ratio is great. That's amazing. The main thing is that just means it's also going to take a lot of power while it's draining or while it's protecting you from a lot of damage, which hopefully you can keep from getting shot that much to begin with. But obviously in the end game, that's kind of where you're relying on it the most, and then it's going to start to matter. Anyway, but yeah. One thing is, I think it was GJ wanted me to nerf this. It's not all of these actually. He wanted me to nerf this one. I think it was specifically. He says this is heavy regen is definitely way too good. I don't know. That's what he says. I didn't have any plans to actually do it, but he said it was OP. Oh, is it not his favorite anymore? Well, he's said it multiple times, yeah, throughout the betas as we were talking about stuff. I think it was the most recent one was probably a good half a year ago, but it changes about 2 times a week when he plays. Heavy regen better than Shell and GG's eyes is pretty suspect. I don't think regen needs nerf, never did. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably okay. The thing is, I don't know, it's anything that has a lot of integrity and can also regenerate becomes pretty powerful as soon as you can get out of combat, right? It has to last through that combat, which is, it's the whole thing about how Cogmind doesn't normally have regeneration or healing at all, and it has it in very few forms, and you can't regenerate your hit points, kind of thing. Whereas in other roguelikes you can, so you survive encounter, and because you survived this area, these encounters, you can regenerate and be back in better condition for the next one. Cogmind's better condition generally comes from swapping parts rather than repairing things. But anyway, I personally didn't see a strong reason for it, especially also since people do use this, but I don't see it being overused. So, I mean, even if one player or a few players really like a certain thing, as long as everyone's not overusing it or talking about how awesome it is, I don't really see a reason to do much with that. So I wasn't planning on it. Right. Heavy regen's infinite integrity only lasts as long as your build is intact. That's especially true because the rate is pretty slow. One per turn. If the its integrity, its coverage is quite high, which is very good about that. Very good about it. But the fact that if it does get really beat up, it can take hundreds of turns to just to get back. Heavy regen restores 2 integrity per turn. I think regen needs buffs. No. It's already good. It is definitely good, but yeah, it's not as good for longer fights. Whereas Shell, by comparison, it's got an extra slot, but the faster regen rate is nice. It's as you can kind of compare the two, heavy regen versus Shell. I think actually part of what GJ's last comment was about this that I had in my notes was that he thinks it's too powerful for a guaranteed item. It's almost guaranteed, I think, or it is in his experience. He was getting it every run, but because it is quite good, but yeah. How about slow regen on Mega Treads? That's not very derelict. Is guaranteed in S7. Oh, is that where it was? Okay. Yeah, heavy regen is guaranteed in S7. I didn't remember the guaranteed S7 items. Those have changed over time. Okay, so it is now guaranteed. Yeah, he didn't like the idea of the fact that it's guaranteed, and also that the matter drive is guaranteed. Having these two pretty effective, useful items being guaranteed, perhaps can skew what you plan to do with your builds. Guaranteed on the S7 guards. I think I'd be interested in learning how much damage regenerative items actually absorb over the course of the run. Yeah, the items themselves. I was going to say, we have in the stats, we have in our score sheet stats, we know the amount of damage absorbed by shields, but we don't know how much is regenerated. That would be an interesting thing. That is an actually interesting idea. We can mark that down. Let me put that down. All right, we could have a whole new section for actually a few stats related here. We can have the amount of damage regenerated across a run, so that includes like from armor or any other kind of, mainly armors, I guess, other regenerating sources. SB would count. Also, repairs, like amount of damage you get repaired by mechanics and repair stations and stuff. I don't think we might have. I don't think we have that data, right? We know how many. We know when people are repairing things. But we don't know the actual amount of integrity restored. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have that. This would be interesting to include in stats. How much SB damage you take could be a cool stat, probably about 100,000. Again, this wouldn't be the damage taken, this would be the amount regenerated, which are going to be pretty similar. But we're not going to record damage taken by regenerating things. GJ says Shell is bad because it disappears so fast, so should we make it last longer? Well, I mean, it doesn't have to disappear fast. It depends on what you're doing, but um, no intent. Do we have stats for damage mitigated by force fields? Yeah, we already have that. We have damage blocked by force fields. The regen is a new interesting alternative thing that I don't have though. Um, right, we already have damage absorbed by force fields. We have damage. We have several different damage things. We have damage. We even have damage mitigated by siege mode. I think. One result I expect to come out of this study would be that Sigil's broadsword is revealed to be the better armor than Shell. I guess we'll find out. This will take a while, obviously, because I have to get it in the game, and then people have to actually play those runs and whatnot. But yeah, that could come into the score sheet soon, and sometime during beta 11. It's not too hard to throw that stuff in there. So score sheet is still expanding. Shell needs like plus 200 integrity. Uh, uh, why do we need to buff Shell? It's already a very good armor. GJ says it's bad. Don't ask me. Yeah, well, if GJ was here, he could argue the point, but he's not. So we're not gonna buff Shell. Blame it on GJ's absence. Phase armor is special and weird. People will use that. I represent GJ in his absence. GJ likes botnet. Buff Shell, GJ. All right. All right. Continuing down. Yes, I agree. Oh, what? Oh, you forgot. I represent GJ more than MDF does. Shell bad. There we go. For posterity. All right. So next item we've got up here is actually we need to shut this down. The stream needs to go down soon. Let me see. Let's get down to so we're into defensive items now. Oh, we didn't make it to hard light yet. Um, Man, there's a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of utilities. Oh, hackware. We're gonna nerf that. Just kidding. Um, there's a lot of things towards the end that have already been adjusted or we're not going to adjust anyway. So actually, we're not too far from the end, but yeah, we're gonna have to probably stop the stream. I don't want to go to. I can't go too much later. Um, Buff traps, yeah, yeah. That's the rest of these things on my list here. I actually threw the non-utilities on my list as well because they're kind of special parts, and sometimes they need to be reviewed as well. So the last group, I threw them in here. With all right, wait, what am I on here? And then Vocal Shield. Let me make a note here. Yeah, at the bottom here, we've got all the drone, yeah, traps and other random items at the bottom. Sapper charge, which very few people have had the privilege of using yet. Mega nuke, gamma refractor. Anyway, well, yeah, I guess we'll have to stop and we'll get back to starting from focal shields. Because yeah, this is it's good to do together. I like being able to see more opinions and also voicing my opinions more quickly than we could do in writing and a different format, which I think has been working out well for this. At first, I wasn't really sure how we were going to approach this whole revisiting all the items in Cogmind, especially utilities thing. I was gonna make a big spreadsheet and allow people to leave comments and stuff and whatnot, and that just started. It always from the beginning that whole idea seemed like it was gonna be really unwieldy. So I'm glad I didn't do that and decided to randomly stream it one day when I was working on the spreadsheets myself. So um, this format is fun. Yeah, it is fun. I'm enjoying this. It's normally, I mean, I'd like to do more dev streaming, but I can't. There's a lot of things that I don't want to stream, or can't, or yeah, it hasn't made a lot of sense in most cases. But I'm glad to finally have an opportunity and reason for streaming some of this. I'll always keep an eye out in the future too for stuff that might be worth streaming that I could. We'll get down there later to the bottom, but yeah, we're gonna stop. We're gonna leave off the end of the armors, and we're gonna start getting into focal shield and all of the non-armor defensive protective utilities down here. So yeah, that's going to be it for the stream today, and I will actually be streaming maybe tomorrow. I need to continue our run. buff experimental golem defense. I think I might. I know. I'm not gonna. I'm not sure yet. I have to look at my schedule, but I think I'm gonna might be actually streaming the continuation of the sterilization run tomorrow, and depending on how that goes, I mean, we might continue this list tomorrow towards the end of the sterilization stream if we get like to a new floor and there's still like an hour left, or I don't want to stop in the middle of a floor. Maybe we'll just do one more sterilization. What? Okay, maybe we'll do. Where did I get that notice from? All right, we'll do one more. Was that an email? Wait, I didn't shut down my email. Oh, I forgot to shut down my email. Yeah, I did. Oh, I did get an email. There you go. You were finally right. MTF. Piano jump scare. Yeah, you guys, we needed some sound effect eventually, right? Anyway, yeah. So tomorrow I'm gonna continue. Probably tomorrow. Obviously this week I will do another stream. We'll continue the sterilization run, and maybe we'll continue this on the same day, depending on where we end that. But yes, horror stream confirmed. All right, so. And yeah, I have a lot of other thinking to do before the next one as well. So I'll actually get some time to think about these other uh, non-confirmed changes and maybe run those by you guys later. But we'll see. Um, but for now, that's the end. And I'll see you guys next time and back on the Discord.